The Smite Minor League continues now. One of the books, we see Simplicity, the top team, go ahead and take their game above what they had to deal with. Now, we're going to see Exordium go against Outcold Gaming. Totally some big names over here. Should be exciting. They're going to put on big names and big plays and put on a big show. You can put on a big show as well at home. Go ahead and buy some gems. Get some cool skins. They're cheaper now. 35% off all week long. Do that up. Totally, what you buying with your gems?
I'm going to buy that Nemesis skin that just came out, actually. The
Which
sweet one. The sweet Nemesis skin.
Oh, yeah.
The candy one.
You can see your eyes.
Yeah, a little bit. Bangs.
It's different. It's different. Every other, this is a fun fact, every other Nemesis skin, you can't see your eyes. Like John Cena style. Now, you can see your eyes. Big plays.
Big plays coming out through the divine judgment of the Nemesis. But other big plays while we continue the minor league in Europe as well.
Absolutely. Like I said, Exordium going up against Outcold. Outcold have a ton of big names, but have kind of struggled throughout the year to really find footing and really kind of put pen to paper.
Yeah, with Dimi, FrostiaK, PrettyPriMe, you would expect this team to be the cream of the crop, but so far struggling at 1 and 2 in the standings. Not what we were to expect from them, but today up against Exordium, against another team that's been struggling, might be in Outcold's favor.
Well, let's jump into picks and bans for game number 1 as we get everything all set. Outcold Gaming will be able to pick 2 characters, but they'll have to wait for Exordium to pick theirs first. Of course, the bans will come out before all of that. Ares is the first ban here for Exordium. No surprise there. Very, very strong. Change. Flames now do 5% of minion health, so he can be played anywhere. Across the way is going to be Kronos. He's one of the big boy carries. So Shriekup's kind of really do it to him. Shriekup's not the only one that has a Kronos. Kind of everyone does. But the Chernobog is a little bit interesting.
Yeah, up against Outcold Gaming, I think PrettyPriMe in the mid lane could pilot this god. Spudio as well in that long lane has been known to make the plays. If you leave him alone too long in that lane, he's going to be able to make that rotational impact. So a smart ban of the Chernobog. Wouldn't be surprised to see another Hunter ban, or at least another god that would go in that long lane.
And that's Zhang Kui. Zhang Kui has been a staple of the mage in the carry role now since we've seen mage in the carry role. Renegades kind of brought it out during the midseason invitational, beat everybody with it, got a trophy, and so everybody has brought Zhang Kui to the same little lane. Set will be the first pick after Isis and AMC are banned out. And, you know, Ryan kind of said it very plainly in game number 1 of last set. Character's good. Just pick it.
Yeah. It's pretty solid, especially if you're accurate with the skewer in using the multiple clones. It's one of those abilities that you really have to practice consistently, whether it's in your games or in the jungle practice, because once you hit that with 3 clones as well, you take 100% health squishy to like less than 50% off of 1 7-second cooldown ability.
He's tough to play, but once you have him figured out, you can kind of keep rolling with it. You can absolutely deliver the punches as well. Put him in the solo lane to build tanky, put him in the jungle and build Jotun's Transcendence like you do on every other character, or build him in the long lane and watch him beat the other ADC. That's the game plan every single time. So now with the first pick set, you have maintained control of ambiguity, and you can kind of draw anything you want. Thor will show up, routinely a jungler, sometimes solo, very, very, very rarely a support. And Athena, kind of all 3 of those roles as well.
That's true. Double global pressure. I love this coming through from Exordium. The old school Athena Thor, because if you have those 2 as your foundation to build off of, your backline can almost be anything that you want between the taunts and the long range stun setup.
It really is a nice composition that we've seen Exordium kind of amass up here. Outcold Gaming are going to finish up theirs with a Guan Yu. So it's the Morrigan, Jormungandr, and Guan Yu here for Outcold Gaming. 3 very difficult to play gods and 3 very difficult to deal with characters. I guess Jormungandr is really not the hardest god to play. But with that in mind, Dimi, Guan Yu, that's an old school combo.
It really is, dating way back to the whole Epsilon, Panthera, even the energy days.
Even before that, yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to say how he likes to play the Guan Yu because he prefers gods that's going to make the bigger impact in the team fights. As solo laners have tried to figure out, is it better to win the early laning phase or better to win in the late game team fights? 9 times out of 10, it's all about the mid to late game team fights, so we'll see Dimi probably on the Guan Yu.
Outcold prioritizing the magical damage. Athena, sure, but not exactly a damage dealer. Set and Thor locked in means that Exordium are probably going to need some sort of mage damage. So both Poseidon and the Merlin taken away by OCG. Exordium take a look at the draft and say, well, you need a carry and you need a jungler, but let's focus on the jungle and we'll take down 2 of the more prominent picks there. So Outcold Gaming, pick a Jing, safe, Free crit. That's what she does. Exordium respond with a Ho-Yi, and they've got one more to go.
Would like to see a soul just for more basic attack damage, also magical damage to be able to absorb and rather defeat the objectives rather quickly. Scylla wouldn't be bad either, considering you have plenty of setup and a lot of damage. But if you're looking for damage in Scylla, you could also find it elsewhere.
Hebo. That's one of my favorite characters. You ever want to watch somebody disappear? Pick Hebo and hit 3-4. That's how this one works. We're going to see how it works out in the middle lane. Hebo, more traditionally thought of as a jungler. So now, if he winds up in the middle lane, which he just might, he'll be a little bit more susceptible to the gank. The dual lane, of course, maybe a little bit more safe. Serqet, there it is.
It's also about the Alice of the Yellow River. If you're looking for the mobility to get away from Jorm, Hebo is a good way to do it.
Exordium and Outcold Gaming going head-to-head here. Should be an exciting game number 1. Casters, bring us the business.
Be more than happy to, Tom. Thank you, Toli, as well. It's Finch and Taco on the call as we move into Exordium up against Outcold to start our second set here of the day. And Outcold have actually drafted a decent amount of chase down potential, I would say, between the Serqet, the Guan, and the Jormungandr there for Breez, kind of becoming a Breez special in the support role. I don't know how you get away from this kind of comp.
It's going to be tough, but Exordium have some decent components of their own. You have to remember, Set, Thor, even the Athena all have pretty decent rotational capabilities, so it's not as if Outcold can necessarily rely on their chase down. They've got to be careful about their laning phases also.
You're right. They could certainly be caught out here a little bit if they're not careful, as Cozyx will be taking the Set into the short lane. Looks like he'll be joined by Alka by the Athena, but the other support does not appear to be here. Breez elsewhere, at least for now. Looking to see what work he can get done. Dimi will just handle things alone here on the Guan Yu.
Tallow Assault going to be able to provide the shred that Dimi needs. In fact, getting a decent trade out here up against Alka, who's taking a not a big amount of poke, but it's enough for Cozyx and Alka to be a little bit more concerned about confirming their own jungle camps in that blue buff. FrostiaK going to be able to rotate in, and all's pretty much as expected so far. Breez, I think, is probably the most noticeable difference here, since he went straight from that speed buff with FrostiaK into that red.
Yeah, different pathing that Breez has taken here to get things started off. Trusting Dimi alone in this 1v2, so that is going to be some big farm for him. As long as Breez can stay relevant, this should work out really well for Outcold. But I'm just glad we're seeing Thor be picked, man. I mean, I don't know. We were in set 1, and he wasn't getting really highly prioritized at all in that one, and you just can't go wrong adding this guy to your team right now. He's so much damage and a decent amount of control to put Thor on your team.
It's the semi-global aspect, but you have to remember that PrettyPrime's also going to have...
Taco?
I wouldn't really call it an early gank, but...
We're not even 2 minutes in, and FrostiaK wants to see if he can try and find one more over in the long lane. Dancing inside that knock-up, there's not a whole lot of options. That is first blood for FrostiaK. Itori goes down.
Surprised that Itori wouldn't try to just hang around those minions a little bit longer. A dive bomb just about to come up off cooldown, I'm sure, so... Unfortunate, but that's just part of the game. FrostiaK making good use of these hunters getting a little bit too cozy from those lack of appearances.
I keep forgetting what your ranked experience is like, Taco. That's an early gank to the rest of us.
I just can't really even bat an eye because it's just, well, I mean, he's missing 2 other people with him. Normally, I'm used to 4 people in the lane.
Yeah, they didn't quite bring it up. That's only if you're up against Taco. If you're up against just a mortal, you can just send one Serqet.
Well, to be fair, Zap has shared a decent amount of concern, just like Breez having to keep an eye out for these Athena taunts also. And the Athena taunts actually something that I wanted to get into here, Finch, because there is a lot of solid follow-up in terms of burst from these taunts that Outcold Gaming needs to be concerned over. Alka just has so much initiation potential because the follow-up between a Thor, Habwa, even the set with the skewer can be unreal. I
agree. We don't give enough credit to Set's ranged ability to contribute, as FrostiaK can't be looking for a second gank here. Itori doesn't seem to realize knock up into the Cobra's Kiss, does have the dive bomb, but ambush to follow up. Ricochet hits too late, and Spudio finds one more. Brutal for the Ho-Yi.
And again, Itori, after that first visit, you just got to try and hang back a little bit. I understand. Everybody wants to get aggressive when they're against the Jing ways. Froisan still having to deal with FrostiaK's harassment here, but FrostiaK already missed his opportunity to try and strip away those back harpies. And the point still stands though, Finch. When you get ganked super early on, you just have to expect the jungler is going to continue camping your lane. You have to keep in mind, Itori used those purification beads, and Serqet, between the Cobra's Kiss and the Deathbane, that's so much damage, unlike a lot of other junglers.
FrostiaK's here again, man. This is relentless. A ward is down from Itori, but FrostiaK's already in position, so Itori might think he's safe, but Blink, Cobra's Kiss on the minions, might spell the end, but Last Breath is there, into the knockup from Spudio yet again. Itori is dead yet again, 3 in a row, less than 4.5 minutes into the game.
Welcome to competitive play, and FrostiaK is just absolutely beating down this Hou Yi now. But Exordium, it's not like it's all doom and gloom just yet. Even though Itori's been getting, honestly, served up on a silver platter to Outcold thanks to
catching the
FrostiaK's ganks. There's only so much that can be done. This is just heavy focus from FrostiaK. Itori's definitely going to be forced to sit underneath that T1 tower. He should no longer even bother trying to look past that range or the tower line. But he can always recover just from looking for the last hits. He shouldn't be trying to just full clear the wave, because by full clearing, instead of waiting for those last hits, he's going to have to extend again.
There's that Athena taunt you wanted, though, into the knockup coming out from Angry on the Habois, and kill credit goes to Froisan. It did tank an ulti there from that Thor, but they cleaned that kill up quite nicely, Taco. I mean, is that enough, these kinds of plays here in the middle lane, to make up for how far behind Itori's going to be?
It's going to alleviate some pressure at least, and Itori won't have to worry about getting ganked in duo, but ganks might not even be necessary any longer for Spudio. He has got a 2-level advantage now, and honestly, Finch, I just don't think that Itori is playing enough of the lane. He's just continuously trying to find ricochet poke damage onto Spudio, and when you're this far behind, it creeps over everything.
Yes, just try and make sure you're securing that farm. But Spudio might have finally overstepped. Good use of beads gets him away from the taunt. Itori dashing in, but the airstrike is some good return damage as Angry's in trouble in the middle lane. But he's gonna actually die. PrettyPriMe kills himself at the last breath. It guarantees Angry's death. 1 for 1, mid for mid.
Froisan's got to be careful though. Breez perfectly healthy in mid lane, and Froisan just going to do what he can to clear out those last couple of minions, but getting chased down those back harpies, just like FrostiaK's been doing all game long so far. Finds him with the blink, Cobra's Kiss into the Deathbane, and it's clean as could be, but FrostiaK is on fire right now, Finch. Just all over this map, really taking advantage of that Serqet mobility.
This is starting to become a serious issue now for Exordium, is what to do about FrostiaK on this Serqet. And they started off by trying to look for some picks here in this middle lane, but I mean, there's actually Prime that went aggressive yet again by that tier 1 tower, ended up stuck a little bit underneath the tier 1 tower and dying for it. But I mean, 3, 1, and 2 on this Serqet, yeah, I mean, that's a big problem.
If anything, Angry's turned into a steep win condition now for Exordium, because this Habois burst damage is probably going to be one of the only deterring factors for FrostiaK whenever he's looking for those aggressive ambush ins. And have to remember, a lot of the kills that FrostiaK has acquired so far, he hasn't really even had to make too much usage of that blink. Again, Exordium, they don't have the greatest vision on the map. Of course, that's to be expected whenever you're getting a little bit strained for that early game farm.
Take a look for Spudio. He's also becoming a problem. Ninja Tabai and Devourer's Gauntlet finished before the 7-minute mark. And I like what we're seeing from Itori, trying to keep the wave stalled near his own tower. That way he doesn't have to step forward to clear. It does bring Spudio forward. Not even so much about opening it up for ganks, but just making sure Itori can get his farm without getting ganked again.
Maybe get a couple of in-hands in so the creeps don't push all the way inside of that tower line. Losing a couple of creeps to that tower gold's definitely no fun, but forcing Spudio to play up this far pinch is definitely the way to go right now. And Itori kind of just having some fun with that Mark of the Crow ricochet stun onto Spudio. It's not like he's planning on actually chasing it, or at least I had to hope he's not looking to chase there.
Yes, instead of on the wave, some used for some poke damage. As we could zoom out a little bit here, so we've just crossed the 8-minute threshold in this game. A little over 2,000 gold in favor of Outcold, and Breez forced into the ultimate in the middle lane by the taunt there from Alka. Not a ton of chance for follow-up here, despite FrostiaK lurking in the jungle.
Seems a little bit unnecessary, but Spudio doesn't even care about the 2v1. Itori not going to be able to clean up the kill either. Beads are good to cleanse that slow. And Spudio is now a massive problem here because I was just about to say Froisan's done a great job at keeping up with FrostiaK despite all of this early game advantage. So Angry's gonna be forced to Crushing Wave away. PrettyPriMe making use of that Changeling ultimate though, but won't be able to find a kill onto Alka.
Wow, the double Cobra's Kiss split, ambush in place to confirm the kill and spread the poison perhaps. Doesn't quite get the poison spread. Alka guarantees the kill with the Confound to bring him back into the tower line, but Breez had to way too much of a commitment there to try and find that kill into Alka. Not going to happen. Ends up being a 2-for-1, at least in that little exchange, in favor of Exordium.
Some tunnel vision taking place there for Outcold support, but the damage has still been done. Putting a slow to this Habois farm is definitely the right idea, even if it does come at a slight expense there with FrostiaK trading out his own life. I would probably still prefer to see Angry die every single time, if possible.
But speaking of that, of these gank attempts and making someone die every single time, the left side gank there from Froisan onto Spudio. I mean, I don't think there's gonna be any more ganks over here from the Exordium side. You're on your own now, Itori. We don't want to come over there and fight this Fed Jing Wei. He's working on a fail not now. No thank you.
Alka getting a little frisky on those right mid harpies, but Outcold, they don't have direct map pressure, but they've got enough that Exordium are definitely being a little bit more mindful in terms of their pathing as they move throughout the jungle. Froisan actually might have cut Breez off, but without any follow-up, it's just gonna opt to hammer away instead, and all's fair so far for these two teams. Even though FrostiaK put in some early hurting on that duo side of the map, Spudio at least has not had an opportunity to rotate in and really make his impact known.
Sure, and like some slight overstepping in the middle lane from Outcold has given some avenues back in to make things closer than they otherwise would be in Exordium's favor. But some of these build paths are interesting to me. The Spear of Desolation this early for Prime, I imagine we'll be seeing a Bumbus coming in later. That's currently staple on Morrigan, though I think with some of the Bumbus changes that are on their way, we might not. As well as this early Shifter Shield here for FrostiaK. They're a little bit different than what we normally see, but I still think really strong, as Froisan doesn't even make it to the sky. Prime finds the kill.
Interesting challenge there, looking for the hammer toss as your escape in front of 3 different members from the enemy team, but okay. Froisan probably learning his lesson with that one. Alka now could be in some trouble. It's Outcold, looking to collapse into Exordium's red.
Alka does get the taunt off to interrupt Breez, comes back in, happy to take the fight now that Itori is here, but only level 11. Dive Bomb avoids the stun, but Prime wants to commit. Into the Serqet he goes, inside the Suns. He drops the last breath. They even committed Shell, and it's not enough to keep Itori from taking his 4th death of the game. FrostiaK gets Alka, but in comes Froisan, and Angry's here for the follow-up. Where's the Crushing Wave? He holds it in case he needs it for the safety. They needed that extra damage.
Oh, Crushing Wave
That
right
hurts.
as Spudio heads into the airstrike. Breez, though, might pay for his team's aggression, as this no World Serpent means no escape for Breez. And so Exordium will manage to find 1, but they've already lost 2. Cozyx, though, looking to even the scoreboard a little bit more.
Oh,
if you can find Spudio, this could be massive.
That's huge. The damage from the clone, but the actual clone itself, I think, got the last hit in after that leap there from Spudio. So Cozyx gets a very important kill to shut down this Jing Wei for the very first time and slow her farm. But still, this game overwhelmingly feels in favor of Outcold so far.
And that rotation as well from Cozyx a little bit forced, in my opinion, Finch, because he had to sacrifice his own lane in order to make a play happen here. And Outcold just have so much direct pressure now after getting hold of those buff timers. FrostiaK, though, could be in some trouble. Not going to connect the Cobra's Kiss, though, onto Angry. But we've just seen some really awkward decision-making from Exordium, Finch. And I understand that a Habois has lots of burst, but I don't think that Angry is at that glass cannon point just yet. It's going to need a little bit more ramp-up time before he's truly online, and Exordium should maybe just look to cut their losses a little bit short instead of trying to challenge on buffs where they know they're outnumbered already.
And you talked about the burst. That's what it's going to have to be, Taco, if they want to beat Outcold once Dimi starts rotating in on this Guan Yu. Because if it's all reliant on chip damage and poke, he's just going to be able to sustain that up throughout it. So it is going to be reliant, I think, largely around this taunt from Alka and Froisan's ultimate as well to be able to lock down some of these key members like Prime, like Spudio early on. Because if they have to battle to sustain, I just don't think it's going to work. And look at this. They've got all day to bounce the Gold Fury between them and make sure no one takes too much damage. Alka considered coming in, but there's just no way he can safely do so. That is the Gold Fury for Outcold.
Too many choke points that Breez and FrostiaK are able to zone away from. FrostiaK actually going to go straight in onto Angry. Crushing Wave is good, though, and gets him out for a moment. But the damage mitigation from Defender of Olympus simply isn't enough. Instead, Alka going to eat that poison spread on top of the kill for Angry.
Yeah, Itori falls as well to PrettyPriMe elsewhere, and now in comes Prime. You don't think one Serqet's enough. They basically have two. Dimi cleans the kill up. Cozyx in trouble, too. He falls to Prime inside the Changeling ultimate. The Tier 1 tower tumbles down 4 for 0 in favor of Outcold, and as soon as Dimi showed up, things got worse.
You think they were watching the last set, and they're like, look, kills aren't happening in 20 minutes, so we're only going to look for kills in the first 20 minutes.
Exactly. They've got 20, and it's only 14.5 minutes in. Add the Tier 2 tower to it for good measure. That is Cobra's Kiss off the mark now for FrostiaK. So he uses the Deathbane to retreat, but this is ambitious from Froisan. I mean, I don't know how this could ever work. The rest of the team could just be making their rotation over.
PrettyPrime's already way ahead of you, Finch. Gonna look to cut off Froisan, and Hammer Toss might be up in a second, but
I don't know how that was ever gonna work. I just don't know how that ever was gonna work.
Alpha clear.
Sure.
Looking to proxy the next wave that already walked by him a lot.
Hey, you know, at the exact same time, though, Pyromancer did also go down, so you could almost forget the Froisan death if you were just looking at these charts, because there was so many other things they grabbed along that same time. And it's starting to feel a little bit like almost hard-headedness, though, from Exordium, right? The way that Itori was sort of playing this early game, and, you know, it took him too long to make the adjustment to play safe, and some of this overcommitment from Froisan that we're seeing. I mean, there's definitely some stuff to clean up here from Exordium. Though the game not over. It's only a 9K gold lead. As great as that is at 15.5 minutes, we've seen them thrown.
That's, you hate to see it. Well, you love to see it if you're an Outcold Gaming fan.
Right, if you're Breez.
Breez with a sick steal on that red buff. Also going to keep track of that red buff timer now for Outcold for free. Dimi going to get taunted back in, and 3 members of Exordium looking to try and lock down this Guan Yu, but meanwhile, the upside of the map, Itori is just becoming Outcold Gaming's punching bag.
Cobra's Kiss, and that's it for Itori. The Tier 2 tower should fall as well, as there's now 4 members fighting 1 Dimi on the right-hand side of the map. But if Dimi can buy some time, FrostiaK is on the way, but it's Guan Yu struggling to stand tall up against 4. Crushing Wave has to be committed there too, but I don't know if FrostiaK can do much. Ambush is in. Cobra's Kiss onto Angry. Aegis will buy him a moment, but I don't think he can live through the ticks. And Last Breath makes it 1 for 1.
Well, a 2-for-1 exchange, because Exordium's so far behind, and yet they're trying to bring down the tankiest member on Outcold Gaming, and FrostiaK just looking to stop all the backs, heckling Froisan, because keep in mind that left side, Phoenix getting threatened now from Outcold. Fortunately for Exordium, the creep wave is going to end up dying first, but even with Cozyx showing up, I don't think that Cozyx can consider this as a safety measure. He's got to be careful with the way he chooses to push in, because at any given moment, Outcold Gaming could just look to turn around.
11K now is the gold lead in favor of Outcold, Taco, and it's starting to become more and more difficult for Exordium to fight back into this one. We talked about how reliant they were on that initial burst to get them the kills, or else Guan Yu would do exactly what Guan Yu did and sustain through it all. Well, they're just not going to have it if they're 3 or 2 levels behind in almost every lane matchup, even worse when we compare Breez and Alka in that support role. So things are starting to become a problem. I mean, look at Outcold. They're hitting some key power spikes. Ethereal Staff finished for Prime, and he has the Messenger's Mask, the Tier 2 of Bumbas. Relic Dagger there for FrostiaK, so he can blink more often. Fail Not in the Executioner for Spudio. This is looking bad.
Well, Outcold Gaming looking to continue playing their lead right now as they pull the Fire Giant, already down to half health, mind you. Alka going to be the first one. Notice as the cavalry charge comes through from Dimi just for the stun measures. And the chase down. It's just a given at this point. Alka didn't really have much in terms of backup aside from the set, but one lone set.
He's invisible, and Itori might not recognize, but the stun was too late. Dive Bomb comes out in time, so Prime swaps over to the Serqet instead, and then the 1v1 it's hard to imagine Itori can win, but he does get some backup from Froisan. Angry's rotated over to this one as well. Prime might be in trouble, as now Fire Giant being looked at by Outcold. Cozyx kept busy, and that is FG for the Chaos side.
Well, PrettyPriMe might end up paying the ultimate cost with his life. Is Angry going to be able to run him down? Invis is good, but that Atlas of the Yellow River to let Angry know exactly where Prime is at. No escape. Water Cannon going to clean it off, but Breez looking to cut off Itori. And Finch, we've seen it all before. 7 times in a row now. But Itori's going to wind up falling, and Froisan soon to join him.
No mana, so it's hard to imagine he could ever live through this one. Breez spits on him, and that's enough for the kill. So Fire Giant in favor of Outcold. It does cost them Prime and the tier 2 tower on the left, which is not nothing. And now FrostiaK in some trouble. Remember, this is the rotational ability we mentioned about the laning phase, but now they've kind of given up on this team fighting section of the game and just decided to rotate around the map super quickly and just try and look for picks.
It's just weird though, Finch, because it's largely unsuccessful due to the fact that you're sending 3 to 5 members at a time to chase down 1 from Outcold. What do you think the other 4 are going to be doing the entire meantime? They're just going to push, and that's all that Outcold has done so far. They've taken every single global objective. They've been stripping the buffs pretty consistently from Exordium. They have been beating down this Ho Yi. I'm starting to feel bad for Itori at this point.
Oh yeah, I feel for him a little bit. And I love some Ho Yi too, man, but I mean, it can struggle in these kind of situations. The dive bomb can sometimes feel like it's a little bit slow, where you can kind of get caught a little bit sooner than you think getting up into the air, and it's not, you know, the longest in the world, and you know, he doesn't have the CC immunity, and I think that started to hurt this Ho Yi here a little bit.
It's just tough to even try and break down what Exordium could start to do to maybe try and recover this when Outcold just have so much non-stop pressure factoring in. They're not giving Exordium time to farm. They're not letting Angry have a chance to catch up a little bit more. Although that Obsidian Shard Rush, definitely looking like a great idea so far from Angry. This Phoenix defense might just be Exordium's best bet for bringing this one back.
FrostiaK, he's gone in on the Froisan underneath the middle tower, and Prime's right there to follow up. That sets up for the first pick of this siege, and the mid-Phoenix a foregone conclusion. They've got a full minion wave here. I think they're Oni buffed as well, and no one can rotate over to it in time. Mid-Phoenix down, and the rest of Outcold can start sieging on left. They force the set out. Cozyx has to retreat. The Frenzy popped, so maybe they can at least get Dimi as Alka looks for a taunt, but that's Breez you're taunting in, and no one for follow-up damage, so the left side Phoenix gonna fall as well.
PrettyPriMe gonna use that changeling turn into the Jormungandr himself. World Serpent is good. Dimi's already killed Alka though. Left side Phoenix has fallen now as PrettyPriMe charges straight into that fountain. Angry might have found a big crushing wave, but the damage from FrostiaK and the rest of Outcold's even better.
It is, and now Outcold onto the actual Titan room. Titan at half HP. It's just Dimi that's staying there for now. Itori might have actually done enough to force them back out. Cozyx now in the Kingslayer here as well, looking for damage, but he can't afford to stay inside the thick of things. Dimi gets another heal off and clings to life himself. Outcold are somehow sticking around here in the base, but Froisan finally catches up to the Guan Yu.
Well, Outcold did reset that Titan a couple of times after getting some decent poke damage into it, so a big favor there for Exordium, but Cozyx just looking to clean up PrettyPriMe before he has a chance to escape. Good taunt in, Purification beats Burn, but Alka finally getting some strike back revenge.
And Itori getting Spudio, a little bit of lane revenge there of his own as he puts his first kill onto the board. FrostiaK will kill Froisan over on the right-hand side. Breez gets off what damage he can, but I don't see FrostiaK being able to jump in there and
he's going
live.
for it.
He's definitely going to do it, but I don't think he can live, is all I'm saying.
No, he's got this under control. No. Taunted in, beads are good. Only wants that Ho Yi. Had all eyes set on Itori here, but
he gives it
he
up.
is a Serqet.
Rightfully so to give it up, and I know that Exordium do get some kills on the back end, and it is actually huge for them. They make a good deal of gold back. Can we see the charts really quick, Doug? We might be able to see what I'm talking about. Yeah, a nice little dip back up in experience in gold. It just costs you 2 Phoenixes is all to get some relevance back in the match.
Every little bit counts, though, when you've been so deprived of farm for the entire match, Finch. And that's probably the only upside right now for Exordium is, sure, they've got 2 Phoenixes missing, but at least now they know the clear direction from Outcold is probably going to be towards that right-hand side. I don't expect Exordium to try and interfere with this Fire Giant. If anything, it'll be Cozyx by his lonesome again to look for that one, as the set is realistically probably the only member that could survive from Outcold.
Look at how much damage Outcold's doing. Their 4 members of their team are at the very top, and then finally we see Cozyx just barely eclipsing the damage coming out from PrettyPriMe here this game as Frosty forces Froisan into the Anvil of Dawn too far forward in his own, and it costs him his ult.
One of the better tools if you're trying to get vision for a potential Fire Giant steal, and now Exordium recognizing that they need to take care of these fire minion waves that are starting to pour in from that mid and left-hand side. If they can push these waves out far enough, then they might actually stand a decent chance because they are rapidly approaching that 5th item finish off. Well, minus Itori, he does only have 4 items to his name currently. If he can get that Executioner online, though, which I would probably prefer to see an Executioner on the Hou Yi, I don't even think the Aussie would bode well for him at this stage, just because of the fact if Outcold want Hou Yi dead, he's dying. There's no way you're living through a double Serqet initiation.
Yes, he will be in a lot of trouble here. At least gets Executioner, do what damage he can before he ends up falling. That's it for the tier 2 tower, and right now Exordium kind of have to hurry up and come set their defense. A nice taunt from Alka does get the Magai's cloak proc from Dimi. Spudio gets in a few pot shots, but without enhanced FG or a minion wave, there's plenty of backdoor protections, so the Phoenix doesn't take too much damage.
I like this though from Frosty. I threatened him multiple ways, but PrettyPriMe gonna lose his beats rather early on here. Actually a pretty huge win for Exordium that Alka was able to find those without taking too much poke damage in return.
That's right, you got the Magai's Cloak from Dimi and the beads from PrettyPriMe, so it has been good work here from Alka so far. But someone's got to stop FrostiaK, or they don't. I mean, this mid-Phoenix might just be a foregone conclusion. Froisan goes up into the air yet again. He has reclaimed the Anvil of Dawn ultimate, but what target has he picked? He comes way into the back, but doesn't find much of anything at all. Breez is on the Jormungandr looking for Angry and pushes him out. And whoa, what about a second snake? As in comes Prime as well. He's transformed to the Jormungandr. That's it for the right side Phoenix. The left Phoenix has respawned, but it's so low at this point.
All Prime wanted to do was push Exordium back, and a double World Serpent is a great way to accomplish that, Finch. Outcold.
Oh yeah.
With that fully exposed Phoenix, wastes no time in bringing it down, and left side being so weak as is, I don't expect this one to be standing for much longer either, Finch.
Guan Yu has lost the Magai's Cloak proc yet again. Alka forced to retreat, and the sustain starts to come through. Minions coming from right, minions getting close to pouring in mid, and FrostiaK just sitting on the Titan at this point. Now because the aggro is on himself, he is going to end up resetting that Titan HP a little bit, but he's already done the work. Left side Phoenix now down as well.
Did lose his Magai's Cloak proc though, so gotta be careful. Spudio though, gonna get knocked up and actually choose not to agility in. Thought he was gonna get aggressive there for a moment. Instead, Outcold just regrouping and waiting for these waves to push in, so they have the best chance possible of bringing down this Titan, and it is not a fully healed Titan either, Finch.
But Exordium have taunt, and there's no beats or Prime or Spudio. Crushing Wave is up as well. This is not an impossible defense from Exordium if they can just get their way past this front line. But right to the back line goes FrostiaK. He finds Angry on the Hobra, brings him back into Dimi's damage. Aegis lets him make it all the way back to the fountain, and inside the Suns they dance. But what about the Titan? Dimi just heads right to the Titan room, gets him back up from the Snake, and Outcold take game 1.
Angry didn't have a chance to try and utilize that crushing wave in an aggressive manner, and that's kind of the storyline for all of game 1 here out of Exordium. FrostiaK just did a phenomenal job at accomplishing so much map pressure so early on by just beating down that Hou Yi.
Yes, that was a brutal early game for Itori there on that left-hand side, right? 3 early ganks from FrostiaK that all bore fruit, and Spudio never had to worry again about being ahead in that lane. But that wasn't the only place there were some struggles. Froisan, to me, also looked a bit shaky here on this Thor with some of the decision-making and positioning that we saw. That right side tier 1 tower dive comes to mind.
I think that Exordium just got a little bit flustered after how badly that early game went for them, and for teams that have a little bit less experience, a lot of these players traditionally only experiencing, I think, Challenger Cup at their peak, and so coming now into the minor league where it's an entirely different environment, and Outcold Gaming are certainly nothing to scoff at. Yeah,
the SML is so crowded here for Europe, it hardly feels like a minor league right now. I mean, Dimi and Frosty and a lot of these guys have all played at an extremely high level before, so you're right. Stiff competition here in the European minor league, and it's going to keep going. We'll be right back after this break.
SteelSeries, the official peripheral provider of the Smite Minor League.
back on the desk. I'm Tom Battinger. I'm joined here by Anatoly Alexeyev. We're going to start breaking down what's going on here for game number 1. Exordium versus Outcold. These guys went head-to-head. Was a fun watch.
Yeah, no, it was a really epic ending, I would say, with how dominant they were at the very beginning of this game. Once Dimi started rotating around that 14-minute mark on this Guan Yu, like, how can you really stop him? He was really left uncontested because of what Spudio was able to do in this long lane. The one gank attempt coming out of Froisan on the Thor really backfired on him, but then since then, Spudio kind of ran the tables over there, finding the kill, dominating that left side of the map, and then Dimi on the right side, uncontested with his rotation.
Well, game number 2 will come right along. We'll take a look at picks and bans. We'll see if the Guan Yu is going to be able to be selected or if it'll go the wayside, whether it's banned or otherwise, or maybe even picked by the opposition. So as we get into picks, we'll certainly see where that's going to go. I expect bans to be relatively similar, so I don't really think anything too crazy should come out.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure. There was a lot of target focus in terms of the Chernobog being banned away out of Spudio, also maybe out of PrettyPriMe. The Ares first ban as well out of Exordium was rather interesting. I don't think it necessarily worked out in the long run. Maybe they have to evaluate if they want to maybe run some kind of sustained composition themselves.
Well, right away, Exordium are going to ban out the Chernobog. That's something that we saw earlier as well, so they just don't want to deal with the global pressure. And the Chronos banned out by OCG. So 2 options here, both in that hunter carry role. Want to watch out for those long-range characters. And then, of course, Zhonghui, just a little too strong.
Expecting the ISIS ban from OCG afterwards as a secondary pick. You don't want to give that up too often, and I don't expect them to go with a Thor ban. Seeing Froisan play it wasn't the most impressive thing. I think he ended about 4-7 that game. Could have been a little bit more impactful with some of his ultimates, slightly off the mark.
Well, the set ban, I think, is very important here. Exordium don't want to select it, so they're going to make sure that the opponent can't select it, and that's a nice look. OCG here, last ban, will take out the Morrigan, and so Exordium now have the opportunity to go for the first pick. We've got Nike available as far as characters that have been recently loved, but it's going to be the Jormungandr. He'll show up.
Yeah, Breez on the support role. Had second top player damage, actually, right next to Spudio, and I think he made this character work in a wonderful way. I'm expecting a Muzen comp out of OCG as a result of this. Thor not necessarily in their kind of wheelhouse, seeing how Fails likes to kind of, or rather FrostiaK likes to play whatever he wants.
Horus not exactly going to bring you that top player damage, but Horus will certainly allow your teammates to hit top player damage. A ton of setup, knock-up, stun, a whole bunch of options that you've got in that kit. Love this choice if it winds up being in that support role. It's going to be paired up with an AMC, most likely finding its way into the middle lane. Tremendous push, pressure, and burst if that's where the players want to go. But Exordium are going to answer this with a Kumbhakarna and one more pick.
A lot of setup so far, a lot of dive potential between this double Guardian composition. Expecting Exordium to kind of go for more frontline because they want to leave their backline still as a discovery for OCG to kind of ban away what they think Exordium is going to play.
The Ratatoskr can kind of do a little bit of both. Obviously a damage dealer, but will ult in and try and peel while he tries to deal as well. So the global jungler, almost undoubtedly, can be played in the solo lane, but almost undoubtedly, find its way into that jungle role. Across the way, Thoth is selected by OCG. We move on to the secondary ban phase with Ullr.
A little bit of an opposite direction that OCG is doing with their draft, whereas Exordium went for frontline, revealing their hand. OCG on the other side, electing to go for Thoth and a Muzen comp, so you know whose PrettyPriMe is playing, as well as Spudio. I'm expecting it to be AMC in the long lane, actually, for Spudio, as he played the Jing way the last game. It was very comfortable with that traditional hunter. When I see PrettyPriMe, I don't really see him as a hunter player, which is very rare in this day and age of Season 6 Smite.
I got to agree there. Thoth has been played a number of times in that long lane by a number of different players, but I'm right there with Toli. I think the traditional mage in the hands of PrettyPriMe is the way it was intended. And so I'd like to see that little breakup there. Erlang Shen is going to come through, one of my favorite characters in the game. He's got it all, baby, and he's going to be playing for Outcold Gaming. Option over to Exordium, and they're going to pick up a Hachiman.
A little bit of attack speed on that Heavenly Banner, electing to see what their next backline carry is going to be with Soul, Chronos off the table. You could still go Ullr if you want to get that backline damage rolling to synergize with that attack speed, although it would be nice to have a lot of burst damage to follow up from that epic uppercut.
Merlin can do just that. More of his damage is sustained and it destroys towers, or excuse me, it destroys objectives, but Merlin can certainly bring the damage, and that's what we're looking for.
Expecting him to rush that Gem of Isolation to really control the space alongside the Jormungandr. Gonna be hard to really penetrate that front line between all the pools once it's spread out, Merlin's AoE damage, but when you got a global pressure like the Thor and the long range from Thoth, it's pretty easy then.
That's what you're looking for, and OCG are looking for a W here. Whether or not it'll come, that's up to Exordium. How are we going to see it? That's up to the casters. Let's jump right in.
Into game number 2 we go. Exordium struggled mightily in game number 1, I think is fair to say. So they have to make some huge adjustments in this second game. Itori no longer on the Hou-Yi, on the Hachiman this time. FrostiaK on the Thor, which can still gank relatively well, but maybe Itori will have a slightly easier time with that CC immune ultimate this time. But they're giving Dimi the Erlang Shen. And Taco, I feel like we don't see Erlang solo nearly as much anymore.
Not at all, really, Finch. He's just so heavily prioritized for that support and jungle role because of the amount of pressure he brings in the early game that it's kind of interesting to see Outcold prefer to throw Dimi on this Erlang into solo instead, where he's not going to really have a super easy time looking for those early game rotations, especially not if Alka and Cozyx continue to start with this 2v1 like up against Outcold.
That's right. We've seen Breez start with FrostiaK at the speed buff, then go towards red buff, and basically leave Dimi alone for this first level or two until eventually Alka ends up rotating away. But Dimi made it through it A-OK in game 1. They're trusting him here with it yet again. This time, though, in the long lane, Itori on the Hachiman, Spudio on the Thoth. And I do actually like Thoth in the long lane. He can feel really difficult to box into if he can maintain his comfortable range. It'll be up to Itori to try and force past it.
Itori seems a little bit too preoccupied just looking for initial poke, and I get it, don't get me wrong. You definitely want poke against the mage that's in the dual lane, shut them down early on, but have to remember there's minions there also, and if Itori's not careful, Spudio can definitely rack up the damage against him.
Froisan's committed the dash already, but it won't matter. FrostiaK hammers past him, gives up on those mid-harpies, and the Ratatoskr can claim them for himself. But last time we talked about how much, sort of chase down potential Outcold had. They had the Jormungandr, they had the Serqet, they had the Morrigan to turn into either of those and continue the chase. But they don't have quite that same potential this time. They have a good deal of setup, though, around Spudio on this Thoth. I mean, Final Judgment should be connecting every time.
Final Judgment is what you want to see connecting every time, at least, but whether or not Exordium are going to find ways to work around it is what I'm more interested in. I do like this Kumbhakarna pickup for Exordium, just because of the fact that Epic Uppercut is going to be a great initiation tool or disengaging tool, and maybe even just able to lock Spudio out of the fight.
Alka stunned, but finds a two-man Mez, and at this point has repositioned, catches the hammer, spin to the hammer, and now Alka's quite low. They put him into the passive. That does mean, though, that they'll start cooking. Not enough. It's first blood for Breez over Alka with no return kills.
Outcold probably wanted that first blood on Frosty or PrettyPriMe, but it's not like it hurts to give the warrior support an early kill. That extra 400 gold can definitely be well utilized by Breez here and allow him to play a little bit more aggressively. And in fact, he's still going in onto Angry. Froisan waiting for PrettyPriMe to overstep so he can look for a blink, I believe, try to find the stun.
And that's good trust from Angry as well as Froisan to trust in Alka to be able to find this setup, and they have. Breez now incredibly low, but it's still not enough damage, and Prime has some turnaround potential of his own. FrostiaK just needs the hammer. He doesn't even need the hammer. Prime finds one more kill. It's 2-0 for Outcold.
Angry trying to be careful as well with this Merlin. A nice double tap from FrostiaK's hammer could definitely put that Merlin into kill threshold, but Froisan spots out FrostiaK, aggressing into his speed buff. He spent so much time in mid that now FrostiaK has ample opportunity to just track this rat down. But with Alka rotating back in off that short respawn timer, FrostiaK's going to have to disengage.
He has to give the speed up, though he does delay for a little while, Froisan, but delays himself as well. But just a question of did he have anything up to farm in that meantime, and if no, then he's certainly fine spending his time that way. I do like this discussion about what boots our tanks are going for, and Reinforced Greaves have kind of risen up recently as the, just the default option, and then obviously the tank boots there for Breez. But I like this as the pickup.
I think it's a great pickup for Breez, especially because there is a decent amount of dot damage from Exordium, at least on Angry, and even Cozyx can be a little bit annoying with that Jormungandr. But something I have to point out, Finch, these 2 early deaths for Alka have definitely put a bit of a damper on his farming, because 272 bottom of the XP per minute charts, and while it might not seem that drastic, I can assure you having a support this far behind might be troublesome for these respawn timers, at least if Exordium are trying to shut Outcold away from those invades.
But it's not a horrible trade. I mean, I think Frosty was down there too, at least in terms of experience, so if the Thor is having some struggles, then maybe Alka doesn't feel too bad about the fact that he's behind 2. We'll have to see how these 2 kind of use this level 5 power spike, because, you know, the meme is that Thor and Rat play very similar, and Rat's just kind of better Thor. Not as much now that Thor's been upgraded. But they do have very similar ults, right? They can kind of cover a lot of ground quickly, and it's really hard to avoid setup, and the rest of the team can follow up. Whoever capitalizes on that better here at level 5 could be that big turning point.
And Froisan gonna have to just watch as right mid Harpies are sieged again by Outcold. Those early picks onto Alka, though, definitely gave Outcold the advantage in that mid lane for pressure on those mid Harpies. And that slight little tick up of experience still hasn't made much of a difference for Angry's. He's actually ahead of PrettyPriMe, and I have to expect that it's because of all the rotations Outcold have done. I
think they've also been stripping the red buff away. We just saw Alka grab it as there's a bit of a contestation over this blue buff. On the Order side, Froisan goes up into the air. FrostiaK has already used his Anvil of Dawn. He doesn't have a way out, but he does survive the initial damage, but not the follow-up. Alka gets FrostiaK. Froisan goes down 2 to make it 1-for-1. But now that the pin has landed, Alka will fall, and Dimi claims a kill of his own. Outcold come out on top.
Breez and PrettyPriMe not looking to let Angry free from either. Aggression at these back Harpies. PrettyPriMe, though, low on the mana, but a nice beat catch onto Angry still. Not enough damage to actually kill this Merlin, just enough to threaten.
But Prime might have stuck around a bit too long looking for that kill underneath the tier 1. Froisan has closed the gap, but he has Breez here to play bodyguard. If he can weave in some autos, they could turn things around. Froisan just trying to make sure Angry was okay, overcommits to the chase.
Sometimes you should just be happy with the disengage. On the other hand, though, Alka, good blink in, but the slow onto PrettyPriMe might just be enough to get him out of there. Good catch it again from Breez and the sustain. And PrettyPrime's out of there. Meanwhile, opposite side of the map, Itori has found FrostiaK, but FrostiaK's already taken Exordium's red buff while everyone was so preoccupied just trying to chase down PrettyPriMe.
Listen, Spudio's charging the final judgment, but couldn't quite get there. I don't think the range would have been enough, even if he had been correct on that X-axis. He wouldn't have been able to stretch far enough out there to actually take down Itori. But hey, I mean, he's not 2.5 levels down already, so I'm just happy Itori gets to play Smite this time.
I'm sure he's happy he gets to play Smite. He at least gets to live in lane for once and enjoy the benefits of not having to clear from directly underneath that T1 tower. But something I really like that Outcold has done this game, Finch, is they took all of the focus entirely away from that duo lane. Yeah. This Ratatoskr could have been a strong tool for punishing Spudio in these early game phases as soon as he hit level 5, but Froisan's never really had that opportunity because Outcold just keep charging into Exordium's solo side, looking for the buffs into their back Harpies, looking for buffs, and FrostiaK more than happy to expend the Anvil of Dawn in exchange for that through the Cosmos out of Froisan.
That's right, he trades it, getting away from the Ratatoskr. Everything works out. That is a successful red buff invade for Outcold, and Exordium cannot respond. But this could be trouble. Dimi has 3 members on his side of the map, so he uses an early taunt to try and make up for what damage he expects he'll take. But at this point, he's back into the tier 1 tower. He's fine.
Dimi could care less about everything that's taking place right now. Cozyx, actually. Got to be on the lookout here now that this Erlang has that finished off Berserker Shield and the Warrior Tabi. Dimi definitely looking like a potent power option for Outcold to continue playing off of. And Outcold are also just taking the buffs.
That's the hammer. That's the hammer now for FrostiaK. He used it to get over the wall, and he might be in some trouble. That's why he's had to use beads here so early. But then he just collapsed onto Angry. No way to follow up. If the rest of the team just murder the Merlin, Breez immediately goes into his own ultimate to keep up the chase, but there's nothing more to find.
Maybe just heads towards mid lane. Catches out Alka on the dash, but FrostiaK's already about to head into Froisan's speed buff. And one more time, FrostiaK gonna successfully invade and Exordium get nothing in return. They're not able to play off of their own buff timers, and they're not able to play off of Outcold's jungle either because Outcold just keep clearing it out first.
That's right. In the early game, Exordium had the red buff timer on the Chaos side for a little while, but they couldn't maintain control of it. Nothing like what we've seen from this blue buff and the control in the jungle that we've seen FrostiaK develop here so far, to the tune of a 3k gold lead. And this is two different ways that you can develop your early lead. In game 1, they just bullied Itori to the point where I wanted to call someone and see if maybe we could stop it. But this time, it's been all about just jungle pressure and invading.
Well, Dimi looking like a cyber bully of his own right now, catching out Angry, who made the mistake of trying to help alleviate some of that pressure from his own jungler. Tap though, but the double tap is good. Berserker's Barrage even better.
What?
And a double kill now gonna come through for Outcold Gaming here, as his mid jungle just continue to get beat up, and Itori's probably just happy it's not him for once.
That's right. Itori on the other side like, come on, guys. Can't you make it through the early game? As Cozyx does defend his own blue buff here this time. But yeah, this has been rough for Exordium here in game number 2. They do still have some tools they can try and rely on. You know, they got Itori free farming on this Hachiman. I mean, Cozyx isn't too far behind Dimi in the solo lane either. These side lanes are doing okay.
Finch, can you look at Itori's build really quick, and can you read that out loud to me?
Yeah, it's Ninja Tab by into Transcendence. That's what he's got.
So that's a Transcendence.
Yeah.
Hachiman.
Right. Into Thoth, yeah. Who has all the poke you could possibly want. Spudio ends up getting a kill even still in the 2v1 with the rotation over from Froisan. Sure, Itori gets the response, but that's huge for Spudio to at least find something there.
Outcold also. FrostiaK one more time gonna take down that red buff and look to just chase out Angry. Angry has absolutely no idea that PrettyPriMe is right behind FrostiaK as well. Has the flicker, but Swarm's gonna be enough damage to bring him down. FrostiaK looking for the wall cutoff to keep Alka stuck in play.
No, he wants speed. FrostiaK knows what's important here. He comes to grab the speed buff, and now he's ready to disengage. But what do you dislike about the Transcendence over there if this fight does end as I expect? Do you need sustain into the Thoth? Is that where you're feeling? Or does Hachiman just not use the extra power?
Lifesteal is always awesome to have whenever you are dealing with magical carries in that long lane, but I really just want to read out that Master of Arms passive really quick.
Oh, because he doesn't have any mana issues? Is that what you're saying, Taco? Hachiman's fine with mana?
Hitting enemies with basic attacks energizes Hachiman, granting him a stack of MP5.
Right.
Stacks up to 5 times, and the stacks last for 8 seconds. And he has Transcendence. Okay. Alka gonna be dying now on the Kumbhakarna any second. A good mez though. It's gonna buy him a little bit of time, but more like a delay of the inevitable here. It's Angry, tosses out that Arcane Stance Merlin damage, but it's not really looking like a whole lot of damage when you're only level 9.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle here for Exordium here throughout this early game, but even still now, only down about 4k or so gold. This is not entirely out of reach, despite it being early on in the game still, but, I mean, every time I say it Outcold, they reach for one more thing. Now it's the Pyromancer that goes down the Chaos side favor. Things started to become even more tough for Outcold, and I talked about how important those first cooldowns for Froisan and FrostiaK were going to be on their ultimates, and it was FrostiaK that came out the better, 4-1 and 5, as opposed to 0-4 and 2.
Spudio has his left side of the map locked down, though, with Vision, Finch, and Froisan try as he may to continue trying to get something going here off of his Hunter Itori, because Itori is realistically the only one that can do anything against any of the members from Outcold, even though that Transcendence isn't really doing him much service here in terms of the mana sustain. I guess my real gripe with this Finch is that if he at least started investing towards a Fail Not, I could justify this for the 30% cooldown prioritization. But homie's building a Light Blade.
Well, he needs Executioner, right?
I'm tilted.
No, it's into Aussie, I guess, right? Because doesn't have any life to build just yet. Well, there you go. It's Aussie coming out here for him.
It's got to be the Aussie.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of an old school build. I don't know if Hachiman was always necessary to have this one built, because he can do so well when he has the attack speed focus. As now there's some trouble here for Itori. Up into the mounted archery he goes, and Froisan doesn't make it up to the sky. Itori is the one area they can fight, but he finally gets claimed back by Breez on the Horus. That makes a 1-for-1 jungle for Hunter.
Rough stuff, but No red buff available right now. And Outcold Gaming haven't really taken a look at these global objectives yet either, which I think is a big saving grace for Exordium here. Outcold just really trying to continue farming out this map as best as possible because, sure, it might not be a Golferi, but they're definitely making Exordium hurt for farm.
I believe that was the stinger used on Alka. It absolutely was. So Prime got a big burst of damage. Froisan looking for Spudio over and left, but Spudio, level 14, chases him down. That forces out the Through the Cosmos to be used defensively, and Froisan has to back. I mean, that's just how much control Spudio has at this point. I mean, he goes into the Dynasty Plate Helm, into the Pythagorean's Piece. He's going to be hard to kill and do plenty of relevant damage. And now it's Gold Fury time. I don't know how Exordium can make it to this in time.
No one in position to try and interfere. Outcold Gaming are just going to continue expanding their lead here. He went for the Executioner because
it's a really good item for hunters.
Yeah, it's sick for hunters when your team is able to frontline and you can free cast into some damage. But I guess I wouldn't want sustain either if I was Itori. It's not like survivability has been an issue for Exordium, as Outcold Gaming has 4 times the kills of Exordium. But the global lead continues to climb here. And I say global because it's experience, it's gold, it's everything right now that Outcold have going for them.
It's so interesting, right? Because the Aussie to me would signify that you felt like you were going to do some fighting at low HP, definitely going to need some sustain, as Itori is moving in aggressively onto Spudio. And Executioner signifies you expect you're going to get multiple shots off onto the same target, you know, because your team's able to find some setup, or maybe they're just sitting on top of you. But I just don't know if that's consistent with the Transcendence thought process, as FrostiaK is in trouble on the right-hand side. Nice knockups there from Cozyx to try and set up for further chase, but it's still Outcold who are positioning aggressively.
Almost a sick punish there onto FrostiaK. Double tap not going to connect though onto Cozyx. But Froisan can't really afford to push up either, not with Dimi still playing bodyguard for FrostiaK over there in solo, and both sides of the map actually being aggressed into by Outcold now. Itori going to get caught by the evade and punish route. No way to sustain, and that mounted archery on cooldown from having been utilized to go in already. The damage is starting to surface though for Itori, at least off the Executioner. I get the idea here, it's just sustain would bode so much better for a Hachiman in this matchup.
He's going into the Fail Knot here next, which he wanted in the 3rd slot, but he wanted to prioritize that Executioner. I mean, it probably does help. I mean, Spudio has built some procs here into this matchup, so maybe want to shoot through those. As FrostiaK grabs the tier 1 tower in the middle lane, and they can make a look for the red buff Invade. Outcold now have firm control here over the map.
Outcold have had tons of control over this map. Dimi, though, going to be off the mark with that 9 turns blessing. Cozyx will manage to wiggle away into the safety of his T2 tower, but this is more so just the experience shining through on Outcold Gaming, and they just continue to abuse Exordium in every single possible aspect. It's just non-stop shifts of attention, and
yes,
I would actually like to see maybe a little bit of that game 1 mentality come through for Exordium now, because we have seen a little bit more of a break off from Outcold. They're not staying as grouped up as they once were. They're looking for a lot of 2-player action as their initiation, and if Exordium can just bring the numbers to overturn the engagement, say a 3 to 4 man rotation, to try and match that of Outcold, because FrostiaK has been very aggressive on this Thor, has gotten punished for it a couple of times so far, and could probably get caught out a couple more times if Exordium just have another member or 2 to help.
Ethereal Staff now there for Spudio that adds so much extra HP and survivability on for this Thoth, as he's able to steal away the HP. Hydra's finish for FrostiaK. He's gone full power, no Blackthorn, no Void Shield or anything like that for survivability. Spudio might actually be in trouble, as now Froisan's made the rotation over. Final Judgment charged, and he doesn't hit Itori. That could give him some survivability, but FrostiaK comes in with the Anvil of Dawn stun. Spudio does get hit a little bit there by Froisan, but survives. It's only Alka, but he misses the epic uppercut. Spudio still standing for now, but Alka finally cleans it up. That means it will be 3 for 1 in favor of Outcold.
At what cost, though, Finch? That 3 for 1 special is nothing that Outcold is ever going to be upset with, and in fact, with all 3 members still perfectly healthy, this could just be a T2 tower because I don't really see a possibility for Angry or Cozyx to try and intervene without dying as well.
It's so gross that Spudio survived for that long, man, and that they couldn't find it. I mean, even the epic uppercut to make that even cleaner wasn't quite there, so guaranteed the death of Alka on the back end. And now Angry, who had to have known they were here on this left-hand side, gets caught out. The pin a little bit too soon. The CC immunity from the beads gets him away from both the wall stun and the pen, but that's the tier 2 tower in left going down as well.
Primal Fury, though, due to respawn in about 24 seconds or so, Finch, and Outcold Gaming got track of that timer also, and I would expect them to just wait around. Maybe they back and buy a little bit, spend up some of that gold that they've acquired
back
from...
and buy, yeah.
Outcold this game is entirely dictated by their choosing. Well, whenever Outcold wants to play aggressive, Exordium just have to hope that they've got the numbers to match. But Itori, he can't even step into his jungle with his T2 tower being gone. Also, he's going to get caught by the pin from Dimi. No mink form, though, was a turtle. So Itori trades out the purification beads and that mounted archery. And still, Outcold, free to do whatever they please.
And it's the Primal Fury is what they please. It drops for Outcold. FrostiaK might finally be in a bit of trouble, but he still has the hammer, but gets interrupted, so he can't teleport to it, but does get the Anvil of Dawn off in time. He also holds onto his relics, so not too bad if all that he loses is the Anvil of Dawn there.
FrostiaK was able to clear out his speed buff, no problem. Kind of surprised that Exordium didn't think about maybe giving a little bit of chase there, but then again, with how much pressure Outcold has over the map right now, Exordium maybe a little bit cautious of extra rotations coming through to bail FrostiaK out yet again, because Frosty probably should have been getting punished a few more times, but Exordium's just been so far behind from that rough early game start, Finch, that there's really... the rotations are there for the punish. The damage just isn't.
Well, Fire Giant now being looked at for Outcold, and if ever there were a time where Exordium could perhaps punish, that would be it, but no one is in position. I'm not sure if they just don't know what's happening or if they just recognize they can't do anything about it, but that's Fire Giant for Outcold, plain and simple. Breez locks down Alka. FrostiaK is nearby for the follow-up, but not much there. Instead, they'll just let Froisan split push in left.
Hey, this could be a good look, though, for Exordium to just finally have a 5-man grouping underneath their own map structures. T2 tower in mid, though, probably not going to be the play just yet from Exordium. Only Itori in this mid lane to try and hold it down, and don't think that Alka really wants to try and blink over that wall, especially not with that tower already falling. But the Phoenix defense, with this fail not online,
right,
Itori can definitely pack a pretty serious punch now. That Transcendence, while not necessarily ideal on a Hachiman rush, is going to bring a little bit of that much-needed player damage for Exordium.
Yeah, between Transcendence and Fail Not, that is an absurd amount of power that Itori has added to his repertoire. A little bit of CDR there for him, too, between the Transcendence and the Fail Not, so he'll be getting these abilities off quite quickly as well. We'll see if that'll be enough for him to make up for the lack of sustain, as the last tier 2 tower on the Order side of the map has gone down. Outcold now in control. 14,000 gold is the number.
Sustain probably not needed, though, when the team has just been struggling to even trade out kills so far. So Itori probably wouldn't even get a chance to utilize an Aussie or Devos at the rate that this match has been picking up for Outcold. And Pyromancer also going to be brought down, much like every other objective on the map. Froisan actually going to blink into Dimi, but 9 turns blessing is good for now. Sustain, though, not as heavy due to that Brawlers, and Dimi will wind up paying for his lack of concern to that rotation.
Yep, that looks like Dimi's first spill of the game, too, that he takes unnecessarily. It'll cost him his Fire Giant buff as well. It's still in the rest of the squad, though, 4 members strong. But, I mean, it's you don't want to undervalue that. It's certainly worth it there to pick Dimi for 40 seconds. And perhaps he'll upgrade the teleport to wards and join his squad, as they'll likely be in position to start up a siege. But these minion waves are also relatively pushed out. Exordium have not done a bad job of buying themselves a little bit of time around this Fire Giant buff. Outcold won't have all day if they do want a Phoenix Siege.
Keeping an eye on Angry here, especially. This Merlin on the base defense is probably going to be the hardest part for Outcold to break past. And if Exordium are able to utilize some of that Merlin clear to force Outcold into having to dive those Phoenixes, well, Dimi kind of just exploded. This is a really aggressive Erlang build because of how far out in front Outcold have been this entire match. Exordium really on the back heel here, trying to just do what they can for a recovery process. But that pick onto Dimi, actually a lot more substantial than what it might have initially appeared. Despite the massive lead that Outcold currently have over Exordium Finch, it does put a pretty heavy delay onto this siege potential from Outcold.
Yeah, we'll have to see if maybe they can do enough around Angry on this Merlin. And if Itori, who has gone, you know, without too much trouble this game, especially compared to game 1, if those puzzle pieces will be enough for them. Because again, they're only going to get about 40 seconds, not even, to try and make a push happen.
Well, all the focus from Outcold was on mid-jungle this game, but that's deep dive here from Breez. Went by himself on the Horus. Cozyx already going to be into that World Serpent, but so far, Outcold all intact.
They have survived here initially. Now FrostiaK moves in, looking for Itori way in the back, but it costs him a retreat path, not able to lock down the Hunter for long. The Mad Guy's cloak gets FrostiaK back out of there, but Breez wants to step forward here yet again. Spudio has the final judgment charged. It does come through and bring Itori low, but he's not entirely removed. So instead, Alka will go in and start to look for the Mez. Way on the backside is Froisan as well, trying to slow this fight down, but a bit of a broken up engagement. Outcold can't make it in. The Phoenix still fully healthy.
Angry is putting in work right now with this Merlin Finch, clearing out those creep waves, and Outcold, they already utilized most of their dive here. Breez gonna get knocked up by Cozyx.
Big hammer though.
FrostiaK might have found Itori Finch, but they still haven't found this Phoenix just yet.
And it cost FrostiaK his life, 1-for-1 trade, and Angry find himself a double kill that keeps the Phoenix on the left-hand side healthy. Alka moves forward with the epic uppercut, and PrettyPriMe ends up getting caught out a little bit more. Somehow, down 15,000 gold, Exordium have held on, and done more than held on, and Angry has found himself a killing spree just on this Phoenix defense alone.
Starting to make a little bit more sense as to why Outcold was trying to put so much focus into Angry and Froisan at the start of this match, Finch. Angry just completely shutting down that siege potential from Outcold with that Merlin clear and damage, and have to give heavy credit where it's due to Alka as well. That Kumbhakarna zone and the mezzos were really well timed, really good setup there for Angry too.
Yeah, that's wild that Exordium were able to defend on left side Phoenix. And for what it's worth, I mean, I don't know if Outcold's push was cohesive. I mean, Breez and Dimi go in initially as that first sort of siege underneath the Phoenix, but I mean, FrostiaK wasn't even in the ultimate yet. I mean, by the time it was done, he started charging it, and there was no way for Spudio and Prime to follow up. I mean, what'd you see, Taco?
I don't even think that there were minion waves for Outcold to try and use. PrettyPriMe couldn't even get close to trying to put some damage into that left side Phoenix, and by the time he did get up close and personal, it had already come at such a steep investment from Outcold because, like you mentioned, Finch, they used that Horus ultimate, even Spudio launching off that final judgment. I don't think that bringing Itori down to 10% HP is going to really do a whole lot when Angry is alive.
They don't find it. Froisan managed to survive, so it slows that down. But yeah, the final judgment not getting the kill on Itori. I mean, in that instant, it effectively did nothing because Itori was able to back, heal up, and then come back to the Phoenix, no problem.
And that makes it even crazier when you think about it, that Exordium was able to hold on so well on this left-hand side, missing out on a decent amount of team-fighting damage since that Hachiman not really able to participate until the later phases of that fight. But Exordium, I think, making the right decision here, not even bothering to try and contest this next Fire Giant. When you have a base defense that's successful, all you really need to do now is prioritize keeping Angry alive. Itori if you can, but definitely focus in on this Merlin.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'm all on board with you there, Taco. I think that was more about Outcold not being all together than it was about Exordium being particularly stellar on the defense. They've got a second round of the Fire Giant buff. It will be on Dimi this time if he does not get picked, as he did last time. And as long as they're, you know, initiating as all 5 here for the full process, then, I mean, Outcold are still the heavy favorites from where I'm sitting.
But that's a Oni Fury wave that Outcold, I don't think, is had too many chances to take care of. FrostiaK now going to look for a little bit of split push potential here on this mid side, but the left-hand side is what I'm really keeping an eye out for in terms of Exordium having some pushback potential.
That's their tier 2 down.
Outcold's going to have to take care of that left side eventually, unless they're just more concerned about trying to brute force Exordium's right Phoenix.
Looks like that's the call. Horus ultimate way to the back, doesn't find anything. FrostiaK does get the beads out from Itori as well as the ultimate, but Froisan responds by going up into the ultimate, and he finds off a knockup onto Prime way in the back. Those are his beads that have now been forced out. Cozyx is retreating from his own World Serpent ultimate, but Outcold still relatively grouped, still relatively healthy. They can make another push around this final judgment from Spudio.
They'll be able to rely on Breez's sustain for now, but even with that final judgment intact, Spudio mostly trying to psych out Exordium with it. Alka going to be the first one to head in front, but that Kumbhakarna passive still holding strong for the moment. Angry though, killing FrostiaK in return.
That is huge that they've removed the Thor, but Alka does fall in trade, so that's a large piece of the front line for Exordium, while a lot of the setup from Outcold has been taken out too, and it looks like Outcold are going to stick around. Prime goes and clears the mid-wave to force those minions back in, but that is twice now that Exordium been able to hold on the Phoenix.
And Angry still doing plenty of work here. Meanwhile, that Oni Fury wave on the left-hand side has started to work its way in. Breez, but final judgment is completely off the mark here. Breez super deep in the backline now, just looking to take down Itori.
And Dimi's fallen quite low, but so has Itori. Breez is right there with him to keep him healthy. Mounted Archery does not complete the kill, but Froisan moves in. 9 turns Blessing doesn't find the heal either. Now they've lost FrostiaK and Dimi, and with only 3 members, Outcold are the ones falling back.
Outcolds are just so disjointed. They're going in too soon. I think what strikes me the most, Bench, is that Breez keeps solo ulting on this Horus way deep into the Phoenixes, and Exordium, they don't really have to pay much mind to Outcold's front line, because sure, the front line is able to harass Itori, able to push Angry back towards the fountain, but at the same exact time, Cozyx is just preventing PrettyPriMe from ever being an existing factor on these Phoenix sieges. We've seen PrettyPriMe so far back every single time that these Phoenixes are perfectly intact.
They are. I mean, Outcold has gotten almost no pressure on these Phoenixes here so far, and I think it's one thing to talk about the disjointment of their initiation, but they might also be running into some composition issues, Tonko. I mean, these 2 warriors are way better in the early laning phase,
finding
and
those
catching
picks.
people out, finding picks. I don't know if they're quite as strong in these sieges.
Definitely going to have a pretty troublesome time here. But I'm sure that Outcold has gone back to the drawing board on more than one occasion, since that is not their first failed siege against Exordium. When you fail a siege one time, usually you can chalk it up to maybe a little bit of team miscommunications.
Sure.
When it happens a second and a third time, Finch, that's where it's a little bit more cause for concern. And these double warriors might just not be in their peak any longer.
And if it is going to be this all-in commit, I don't know that Itori's the one that they should be looking for, right? I mean,
no.
It's got to be Angry. That's another part of this that has seemed inconsistent to me. Outcold have got to get rid of this Merlin immediately, every time they go in. As Froisan looks for the 1v1 here with FrostiaK on the left-hand side. It is Froisan who's forced into the ultimate and to retreat sooner, though.
Froisan was probably hoping to just pull that Mad Guy's Cloak proc off of FrostiaK, but this is still pretty risky business here for Outcold. Trying to push in. No, instead, they're going to fall back to this Primal Fury spawning, although, much like the last couple of Fire Giants have been, I would largely suspect that this upcoming Enhanced Fire Giant to still be mostly uncontested from Exordium. Angry is just putting in too much work right now, and Cozyx and Alka are doing a great job at distracting Outcold, but probably the biggest woe here is the fact that FrostiaK has just not had a very easy time at looking to pick off Angry or Itori, because now both of these carries very much able to turn and burn.
This could be big, though, for FrostiaK. He just sold the boots for the Elixir of Speed into the Mantle of Discord, and he did go pretty heavy into power this build. A lot of the times we see our Thor's kind of bruisery with Black Thorns and other hybrid items in between. So now that he's gotten this mantle, maybe Frosty could survive a little bit longer on the dive. As long as the dive's on to Angry, I'm signing up for them. I'm on board.
Right there with you, but again, if FrostiaK is going to try and make Angry the target, he's still going to have to worry about Froisan. He's still going to have to worry about some potential free casting damage coming out of Itori also, because while this Hachiman wasn't really able to do a whole lot in the earlier aspects of this match, Finch, that was largely due to the fact that Outcold just weren't spending a whole lot of time in duo.
Right, and I love this Odysseus bow picked up for Itori, because that is one more thing that they can need, is that spread of damage. Because if Itori is going to be the one that they're diving way in the back, behind the back of the Phoenix, he's not going to get to do damage to Spudio or Prime. He's got to try and chew through Dimi and Breez.
I'd really like to see a Bloodforge for Itori. Whether he sells out the Transcendence or the Ninja Tabi, either or could really work out pretty well, but I'm thinking Bloodforge most because of the fact if he does wind up getting a last hit, he nearly had a last hit on that right side Phoenix siege attempt from Outcold, just got a little unlucky that mounted archery happened to clip the wall structure inside of the base.
Right, that was pretty frustrating, I imagine, for Itori, as he could not finish off the kill. Outcold will push up the left side wave as well as the mid wave and make yet another attempt at this base of Exordium. They have held on to now for nearly 10 minutes, longer than I think they had any right to, if I'm being honest. Some of it comes down to Outcold, some of it down to Angry playing well, and also Cozyx. I don't know if we've given enough credit on this Jormungandr, but 0-0-7, no deaths this entire game, a part of 70% of the kills. But Horus is ready to start things off. They're going to come right over to the left side, trying to catch Exordium off guard, set up for a mid-Phoenix defense instead, and Cozyx goes right to the ultimate to keep Spudio at bay. That will be it for that Horus initiation. Outcold don't find much.
Outcold trying to take a page out of Simplicity's book with that one. Breez had the right idea, I think, looking for the Phoenix Siege, but not enough time to actually get some autos in. And one more time, Angry just doing what he can as far as clear is concerned. He is forcing Breez and Dimi to undertake that dive damage from the Firebird.
It's just so difficult to catch anyone off guard with that ultimate from Horus. An initiation there from Dimi, a little bit off the mark. Final Judgment gets negated by Angry's Aegis, so FrostiaK picks him. The beads come out from him as well, and suddenly Angry has survived the dive, and instead he can turn around for the defense. Frenzy has now been popped as well by Outcold. They're about half HP, a little bit better, but they still can't make their way in.
There still isn't really much of a way to work with Outcold. They're still waiting on their creeps to catch up, and by then, Angry's already back out of Fountain, already back to full health.
Looks like it's being considered, but they don't find much there. Breez is inside the Phoenix taking aggro, does get a good deal of healing, but now Alka is the one aggressing. He's got Cozyx right there by his side to look for more, but it feels almost like a stalemate. Neither team could find much here. It's just Exordium buying time to find more items.
A great discipline there from Alka as well, not to bait himself or his team into trying to overextend past this Phoenix range. Right now, the main thing keeping Outcold locked out is the fact that they can't handle this 6-man damage from the Phoenix while also looking for player damage.
Bit of a split now coming up from Outcold. Dimi's in the middle lane, trying to keep things moving. Wall comes out into Froisan, and he's quite low. That's an important pick that FrostiaK's been able to find and how he regroups. But Dimi's quite low as well. Good damage coming from Spudio over the wall. Alka has used the epic uppercut to regroup, but Final Judgment again doesn't find much, so they go right to Angry. A critical target found now for PrettyPriMe, but Dimi has been brought down incredibly low. Mounted archery isn't enough for the kill, but Cozyx is. He gobbles up the Erlang Shen.
Outcold Gaming, though, with this enhanced Fire Giant, still looking to bring down at least one of these Phoenixes. Cozyx gonna get stunned now from Breez, but left side, FrostiaK also trying to solo down the Phoenix. 2 Firebirds potentially to fall here. Alka doesn't have that epic uppercut, and Spudio gonna join in. 2 Firebirds have now fallen shortly after Angry became a heavy focus here. Cozyx and Alka both doing what they may, but it just hasn't been enough.
That was huge, though, from Outcold. They got Froisan early, and it came when they started splitting off their push, Taco, a little bit onto that mid-Phoenix. Dimi was the one that rotated over to it first, and then when Angry got caught out by Frosty, they found another pick, and they could finally bring down those 2 Phoenixes.
I can't count Exordium out yet, though, Finch. Despite the fact that they've lost 2 Phoenixes, and this is looking very grim, I still have to factor in that Merlin damage. Angry is not exactly top of the charts just yet, but he's up there. He's top 3 right now, hovering with PrettyPriMe and Spudio. And Spudio having a pretty massive advantage when you consider the Thoth range off the hieroglyphic wall.
All right, FrostiaK holds onto the Mad Guy's cloak and makes it away from Froisan. That was critical for Outcold. They still have that cooldown. Fire Giant will be back up in 10 seconds, and Outcold should have free claim to it. Exordium have to worry about these minion waves coming in instead. But, I mean, you saw it. It took almost 10 minutes for them to be able to kill Angry. I mean, the beginning of the game was Angry getting picked constantly. He was 0-3-3, but since then, he's essentially been 4-1. So that just goes to show how good he's turning things around here in the late game.
Alka and Cozyx actually trying to put a little bit of delay here onto this next enhanced fire giant. Alka, though, going to get spotted out. Forced the epic uppercut Dimi straight into the air, but now Froisan wants to go in, and Spudio's exposed.
He's isolated, so is PrettyPriMe. What's happened? Suddenly the carries have been caught out. Cozyx finds one Angry, finds the other one. Prime goes down, and that removes almost all of the damage for Outcold. Dimi is in trouble on the backside. Froisan finds him. Angry gets the double onto Breez, and suddenly Exordium have broken open Outcold. They've suddenly collapsed.
3 towers still standing, though, Finch, and FrostiaK maybe going to try to do a little bit of a base race himself, but Froisan wisely backing to base. This Ratatoskr is going to struggle a little bit with these fire minion waves, Finch, but that's not to say that he can't keep FrostiaK locked out.
Oh, this is going to be so close. Ratatoskr isn't the best at clearing out these minions, and with everyone up on Exordium, including Itori, he can accelerate that attack speed to start burning through, but look at these minions coming in. There's just so many for one rat to clear by himself. But FrostiaK can't push the Titan. He has to try and slow them down. He goes right to Itori, the source of consistent damage, to slow down the push of Exordium. FrostiaK Aegis buys him a moment. So does the Mantle, but now he's fallen. We're 10 seconds from anyone popping up on the side of Outcold to defend. I think Exordium might have done it. They pulled this game back from the brink.
Angry's back is so heavy right now, but you know what, Finch? This was definitely a team effort. Spudio trying to do what he can, but the Merlin damage on the Titan. Good luck, Outcold.
Wow, man. Exordium grab, game number 2 in 39 minutes. What an end to that game. I want to make sure at the beginning we give Exordium a ton of credit because I think Angry played that really well, so did Cozyx on that Jormungandr. But if we go back to the 21-minute mark, Taco, there were so many things that I think could have been done more cleanly by Outcold.
I would have to agree right there with you, Finch. I think that Outcold just got a little bit lackadaisical towards that mid to late game portion because they were so far out in front of Exordium. Outcold might have already been on autopilot factoring the set is over.
Right. Hey, guys, we got this win. Good job to the early game getting us up 12K gold. Let's just go close this one out. And then Dimi gets picked on the left-hand side. And then FrostiaK doesn't seem to be quite on the same page with Outcold for their dive as well. These two warriors kind of show some of their weakness in the late game from what I could see. And Exordium are able to find a huge win here over Outcold. I mean, I know that these teams are both kind of struggling record-wise, but they should not have won that game.
I appreciate the Hail Mary call, though, from Exordium to actually challenge at the Fire Giant pit after conditioning Outcold into expecting them to just let that one go for a freebie. And then the next thing you know, Cozyx has managed to help isolate the carries, and it was just a catastrophe there for Outcold.
Yeah, if you go back and look at that fight, no one was near Prime or Spudio, and they get picked off by themselves. Just should not be happening. That is the win for Exordium. Didn't think I'd be saying that. Give us a quick break, though. We'll be right back for the conclusion of this set.
The Smite Console League is brought to you by Titan Forge Games, the developers of Smite.
One apiece. We sit it tied here. Welcome back. My name is Tom. We're going to look at what happened in game number 2 and look forward to game number 3. Totally, this one came down to it. I mean, Exordium were able to tie.
To go from a 9-minute surrender vote to a 40-minute defensive hold, shoutouts to Exordium bearing through it all, because honestly, their defense was phenomenal on 2 different separate occasions, able to hold their Phoenixes. At 25 minutes, they had collectively 59,000 gold versus 73,000, and then 35 minutes when they were defending 80,000 gold versus 95,000 behind basically the entire game. It came down to that one very last team fight around the Fire Giant where both of the carries out of Outcold Gaming were so far separated from each other. The Muzen from PrettyPriMe was left in like no man's land where he had no defensive relics. He got caught off guard, Spudio as well, no one protecting him in the back line, and as a result of losing that just one single team fight, Exordium get back into it.
And there it is, just like that. Clean stuff out of the opposition. We're going to jump into picks and bans for game number 3 and see where everybody is going to land and how they're going to do just that. Exordium, after winning, will pick, or Exordium will be the first pick here, and we'll see where they decide to go. Ban's going to be the same. No Chernobog, first and foremost.
I would be very surprised if Outcold Gaming doesn't ban the Jormungandr. The way Kazi was able to pilot that on the defensive side was good in terms of getting the cleanup kills. This very last Phoenix Siege, Dimi fell because of the World Serpent. I'm expecting to be prioritized one way or the other.
Zhang Kui here banned out by Exordium. We've seen him banned out a number of times. Chrono's going to be normal ban as well. Second ban here for Outcold Gaming will be an Isis. That's predictable. Exordium now have one more ban, and probably going to be something that we've seen time and time again. We're really expecting these meta bans to really be knocked out of the way, and set there it is. It's been very powerful in the jungle, solo, carry. Kind of strong all over. Jormungandr, after last game's performance, will be banned out, so no more zonage from the giant snake. First pick to Exordium.
Good adaptation, honestly. I agree with this because last game it was the Morrigan that was banned in that same exact slot, but after that performance from Kazi, I was expecting that to be a ban, and I'm a little surprised to see the Merlin rather being first pick when the Muzen is still open.
Kumbhakarna going to be the selection here for Outcold Gaming. As you mentioned, AMC still available, so OCG could go in that direction if they want to put some pressure in that mid lane, or I guess relegate over to the side. The Morrigan not banned out here though, and so will be selected by OCG in this secondary position.
I'm expecting Exordium to kind of go for more frontline protection, though. When you have Merlin, you need something to kind of accelerate it beyond that early game. Terra, not necessarily known to help out before level 5, but during the team fights after level 5 with the Earth and Fury, mitigating the damage, helping out your own team's damage. It's a good way to win the team fights, and to win objectives is another way with the Hachiman.
Hachi can certainly bring the objectives here, a little baby coerce, allowing his teammates to attack quicker if that's what they want to do. So some smart stuff here as Exordium finishes up their half of the draft. Daji will be the jungler of choice here for Outcold Gaming. They're going to bring this one in. Ton of control, a lot of beads burners here. So Daji certainly at home.
Against 2 gods that don't have beads burners in their kits, right? Merlin and Terra going to be susceptible to getting pulled by the Daji, towards getting epic uppercutted by the Kumbhakarna, Mezd. Morrigan could even go to the Daji. We can even see 2 Palaus at the same time here, F.
Certainly going to be an uphill battle for these guys trying to figure out where they're going to choose to use those beads, because every single one could be devastating. Second round bans come out. OCG focused in the jungle, and Exordium looking at a Guan and a Jing, 2 different positions, but all the same situation. Outcold now, Kumbha, the Morrigan, and Daji. They need a carry, and they need a solo. Ullr will be their carry, and we'll see where they go from here. Merlin, Terra, and Hachi, 2 more to pair with them. Totally with your brain.
At this point, I'm expecting some kind of global pressure, right? Whether it's the Thor or also the Ratatoskr. Both of those are still surprisingly available at this point, as we saw Exordium's jungler last time around on the Ratatoskr being able to dive Spudio at that very last engagement worked out.
And it's going to be leaned on here. If you can work out in one game, hopefully you can do that in another. That's why we see the first pick Merlin for Angry right off the bat, and then Ratatoskr going to be selected again. And like you said, just doing what the jungler does. Tier here for Outcold Gaming. Somebody must have watched Julio play earlier today. You'll love to see the tier.
especially for Dimi, right? This kind of is very old school, Season 2-esque style. We'll see how he transitions in lane.
Tied up here at 1. Somebody's got to win. It's up to the casters to let us know who.
Exordium somehow pull off a miracle defense in game number 2 to force this game number 3 here, Taco. And Outcold, I'm sure, are not happy about it. Dimi on the tier here this time, FrostiaK on the Da Ji. This early game they're about to watch was not an issue for Outcold. That's not where they need to make some adjustments. They need to make sure that they're closing things out when they actually get there to the door. An issue that's plagued this team for a while.
And that's part of the reason why I think we see this team fight focus switch up coming through for Outcold Gaming. Like Tolly was mentioning on the desk bench, that introduction of a possibility for a double Da Ji pools, even double Kumbhakarna, double tier, a lot of really solid options that PrettyPriMe could transform into.
PrettyPriMe, I believe, played this in game 1 as well, and it looked really strong for them. There were some times where the read was there for Itori, was able to get away from the stun or some of the damage, but for the most part, a really strong game by turning also into the Serqet. See if it works for them as well this time, if it's turning into the Da Ji, the tier, the Kumbha, or even borrowing from someone on the side of Exordium, as FrostiaK has already stripped away the jungle.
Alka and Cozyx get to take away Outcold's blue buff, but considering that FrostiaK's getting a little bit more than just those back harpies, gotta be careful though now that Angry spotted him out. Not certain that FrostiaK has that Trickster Spirit to try and get away.
Oh, he just barely got it, but Alka's waiting, 2-man stun, and there's Merlin's damage. First blood, Prime finds a stun on his way out. They'll need this root as well, but I think Froisan used the B to try and keep going. Could not find the pick, so that means it's first blood for Exordium.
Unfortunate that Froisan couldn't turn a first blood into a double kill opportunity, but the damage has still been done, and FrostiaK getting punished for invading against Exordium is definitely going to make it a little bit more difficult for this Da Ji to try and revisit Cozyx's blue buff on the next spawn.
Alka rotates in, but might be in some trouble. Rooted. Prime is here for a little bit of follow-up, but most of it used on the wave, so no harm, no foul. Spudio played, what was it, the Jing in game 1, I believe, and was put ahead by FrostiaK, and then the Thoth in game 2. But this time, he's on the Ullr. That's so different from what he's played up until now. It feels like he's saying, all right, I'm going to get pressure this time in lane with the Ullr. Killing you if you step up. Good luck, Itori.
Spudio is just looking to try and heavily aggress into Itori. That's the only thing that Ullr ADC ever says anymore. I want to fight, and this is the fight that Spudio was looking for. Bladed Arrow not going to be on the mark. But the Hail of Arrow is good, and actually I take that back. I was just waiting for some prime time to look for that Bladed Arrow follow-up after the Axe Toss wore off. But Itori on the Hachiman yet again. Well, I wasn't necessarily a fan of the Transcendence Hachi. I am a pretty big fan of that Spike Gauntlet start.
That's right. We will be seeing Devourer's Gauntlet after all this time. Itori, I think, recognizing he'll probably be okay as far as mana is concerned.
And it is a player preference thing to a certain extent. Maybe some players like Itori just want to prioritize the power, but typically you go Transcendence in a lane where you can actually heavily aggress, and game 2 was just tough for that Hachiman to find an opening against Spudio due to the fact that Outcold Gaming was so far out in front. So now you're just looking more towards the lane survivability aspect.
Yeah, hopefully Itori waits, though, on these Devourer's Gauntlets, because Spudio is going right into the Ninja Tabi early, which means that if Itori does go Devourer's Gauntlets, he'll probably be a sitting duck. He won't have nearly enough mobility or even lifesteal to make up for the lack of mobility.
But he doesn't necessarily need to box Spudio. If he does try to rush the Devo Gloves, I do think it's very likely Spudio finds a solo kill. At the same time, though, getting a jump start on those stacks could be a decent look, but I'm very much expecting Itori to kind of match Spudio in that boots rush.
Demi's got to be careful here on the solo lane. Cozyx has shown a great propensity for the laning phase here so far. It was on the Jormungandr in game 2, this time on the King Arthur. And it's Angry right back here on this Merlin, and I really do think he was that big saving grace for this Exordium team in Game 2, so no reason not to go back to it.
I'm actually amazed that Outcold did not look to take this Merlin away from the get-go. I think that probably would have been a strong ban look for the team, but maybe because of the fact that PrettyPrime's on this Morrigan, now they just don't feel as threatened by the Merlin as they once may have. Because they do have tons of kill potential and die potential. That was another big issue that Outcold Gaming had with trying to close the gap to Angry, but FrostiaK with the Powwow, Trickster Spirit, all great tools. It just running this Merlin down.
Absolutely. We saw it in Game 1, I believe, that Prime went into the Spear of Desolation first, and he is waiting on where he wants to go with this pen option, so you might see the same thing happen from him again. I imagine that's to sort of accelerate his aggressive playstyle. He likes to play this Morrigan really aggressive. If he does get some kills, he'll be more likely to be able to escape on the back end thanks to that passive.
Only time will tell, though, for now, Finch. And
true.
Outside of raw 5v5 compositions, Exordium hasn't really been all that interested with trying to aggress too heavily into Outcold gaming. And if you think about it, the one kill that Exordium does have was just them capitalizing on a punish against FrostiaK for having gone a little bit too deep. So Exordium probably just content to focus farming and probably just happy to be able to farm.
Breez looking for some lockdown to Alka. Beads, it looks like, coming out here from this Terra early on. And we hadn't touched on it just yet. We don't see beads or our supports very often, but into a composition this control-y, I think I don't hate it.
Considering that even through the beads, FrostiaK still nearly found Alka with that powwow. It makes perfect sense. Alka knows that on the Terra, especially not having CC immunity in the ult, you're kind of just free if Outcold are able to catch you out. So I don't think that Alka really had many other options aside from going into the purification beads, because it'd be too easy for Outcold to snowball a lead off of picking this Terra without him.
That's right. Time and time again, they'd be able to grab this Terra. So the beads are a smart call. Prime lurking in the middle lane, but won't be able to find Angry. They get the flicker on cooldown. So when are you expecting to see the big points here between these two squads? I mean, imagine Outcold are going to want to wait a little while, get a couple items online here for Prime. He waited on the messengers a lot the last time we saw him play this game, so they might not be looking to be aggressive right away.
Well, Cozyx on the King Arthur actually brings a lot of firepower to Exordium in the team fights. I think that this King Arthur is going to be pretty difficult for Prime or Spudio to actually get away from. And if Cozyx can distract Outcold long enough that a lot of cooldowns are being invested into him, then that could be a good look for Exordium to just try and follow up with their own damage, because this Ratatoskr Merlin combination can definitely pack a punch of its own.
Yeah, maybe even look an eye towards Spudio. He's not going to be the safest in the world when he's, you know, on this Ullr with no CC immunity, and it can sometimes take a while to get into the axe stance to jump away. So I think there's a good idea, or a good opportunity for Froisan to show some presence over there. It looks like Itori did elect to wait, though, on going to finish off the Devourer's Gauntlets, got the Ninja Tab to match the movement speed from Spudio, and is now working on finishing them off on the tier 2 of it. Meanwhile, Spudio also sits on the tier 2 of his Transcendent, so they're relatively even in terms of their current itemization.
The Ninja Tab rush is just smart from Itori, because if you have the same mobility as the Ullr, Spudio's not going to be able to just recklessly jump into the creep wave, because oftentimes you'll see Ullrs just look to initiate even when those minions are present, because they have so much burst damage outright if they're able to land that Axe, Bladed Arrow, Hail of Arrow combination. And the more that Itori can hold on to his mounted archery, the better, because you never know if FrostiaK's going to decide to pay a visit, and it can be tough for a Hachiman to escape every single time when you factor in that Trickster Spirit.
I mean, I talked a good deal in game number 2 about how important that ultimate from Froisan was going to be, that very first use of the Through the Cosmos. But this game, it's been really slow-paced. They got that first pick not because we're really sick Through the Cosmos, but as you said, because FrostiaK was too greedy looking for opposition farm in the jungle. And so far, Froisan's been okay to kind of sit on that cooldown, play things slow, and really not look for any action. It almost makes me curious why I pick the Rat. Rat's so good early that usually that's why you pick him, is for that early pressure.
Well, it is somewhat shutting out. Hold that thought, though. Breez could be in some trouble here, just narrowly avoiding going into that Kumbhakarna passive, but a nice little damage check for Angry, as you can see, has the CDR boots online along with that Spear of Magus, and that's where the primary source of damage is really coming from.
Cozyx could be in a bit of trouble because Prime is on his way to this as well, but can't quite get in range. So Froisan responds by going into his own ultimate. FrostiaK doesn't find much with his powwow, and no one gets pulled in. A lot of abilities used, and everyone is fine.
I think that FrostiaK might have suspected a couple more transformations to come through. PrettyPriMe still looking for Cozyx. Blue buff, though, already secured for Exordium. And FrostiaK actually going to wind up losing the blink just to get away from Alka.
Cozyx Snow not done with his chase just yet. Gets a little bit more damage taken from Dimi rather than given. But they defend their own blue buff, and they push back out Cold. Yet again, that's the ultimate from this Ratatoskr used defensively to try and respond to Outcold's aggression. I'm just a bit curious about this prioritization on the Rat if the early game's not their focus. But Breez in some trouble, has to use the Mez and the Epic Uppercut to get himself out.
But it doesn't look as though Angry or Alka are all that interested in trying to give chase. It is a Kumbhakarna with that passive intact still, so not really much point in trying to force that passive to come into play here. It's just too risky for Exordium. But going back to that Ratatoskr point, Finch, I think that for me, what I like about this, even though Froisan isn't utilizing that through the Cosmos for that early game dominance, I still just like the fact that there is a through the Cosmos to put a little bit of hesitation into the minds of Outcold, because I think otherwise we would just see FrostiaK looking to be insanely aggressive, but when Froisan can cut the gap so quickly on that Ratatoskr, it's usually just not going to be worth the risk here. I mean, you have to remember that wound from game 2 is still pretty fresh.
Dimi might be in some trouble here now. He does still have the Lawbringer to get him over the wall, but it will not come up for him in time. Exordium find their second kill of the game, and Froisan again uses the Rat ultimate to get to mid faster.
Hey, just in case.
I can't complain. I mean, they're ahead, but still, I will say that I don't like it. I mean, if you're not going to be using the Rat aggressively in the early game, I don't love it. I feel very strongly about that.
And again, I think the only reason why I can be content with Froisan on this is if for example, Dimi makes it over the wall with the Lawbringer.
He was ready for it, yes.
Froisan is ready to bring him down. And every single time that Outcold has overstepped just a little bit too far in Exordium's jungle, both of the kills have been punishes so far.
And this is a pretty huge swing if you consider how their other two games of the set have looked, right? Instead of, you know, a near 1,000 gold lead or so in favor of Exordium, it's usually a 4,000 to 5,000 gold lead for Outcold. So considering where they've usually been standing, this is nearly a 6,000 gold swing back in their favor if you consider how they normally are when they're facing this Outcold roster. So not bad to have at least established a nice lead for Froisan over FrostiaK on this Daji, about a level and a half experience-wise.
I'm also keeping an eye on Angry because both of the kills that have happened so far have been credited to this Merlin. Epic Uppercut, though, onto Alka, just for Outcold to contest those left side mid Harpies. Good follow-up poke damage from Spudio, but Alka is a tank, and Terra doesn't really care too much about a little bit of Ullr spam.
Terra not bothered at all as the lead still remains in Exordium's favor, but Outcold have plenty to try and rely on. I mean, you like having a Morrigan in the late game, but the more I kind of go down this roster, I mean, this Ullr would rather be pretty far ahead right around now. I mean, this Daji, this is right around when she normally likes to start fighting, maybe even another level or so away from here. I mean, Outcold don't have that long to wait with this roster and make it work.
Something that I find interesting, though, about Froisan is the prioritization of items so far. A Blackthorn Hammer has that initial rush immediately after finishing off the Acorn into what looks like it's going to be a Void Shield. This is a pretty Bruiser-esque type of combination of items for this Ratatoskr, and Froisan maybe not looking to be the kill confirmer so much as the setup man.
And he's got room to play that setup role because he's got these carries that are just slowly getting better on his side, right? I mean, Merlin is just going to stay good for the rest of the game. Obviously, once you have your Hachiman with items, all that attack speed feels great, but it's Outcold who are the aggressors. Here's Froisan using the ultimate to counter-initiate, as you pointed out, and it does buy his team some time. Angry, very, very low underneath the tier 1, so Dimi hunts him down. Prime is the one that finds kill credit.
Dimi able to dive this tower so easily, but it's got to look out for Cozyx on that backside. Rotated in with the King Arthur. Now Itori looking to join the fight, but just going to get Fearless out of that mid lane instead and forced Aijutsu away. 2-1 tower, though, not really being threatened from Outcold. All they were after was Angry.
And they found him now 2-1-0 instead of the 2-0-0 that he previously was. We saw what Angry could do when he was down in the early game. This time, Froisan's, or rather, Angry's actually having a really good start to this game, so a much-needed stop from Outcold to slow him down a bit.
Maybe that was the mistake for Exordium. Maybe they just need to be behind.
Right. I mean, I've said it before. And I'll say it again, the game is simplified a lot when you're playing Phoenix defense, as opposed to, you know, when you've got this whole map to worry about making sure you're playing correctly. So maybe there was something to kind of a defender's advantage there for Exordium. But they still have a very small lead to play with here in this game, or actually they did. It's essentially just tied, no lead to speak of here, so we'll see how they play from even.
Cozyx has not had an easy time, though, trying to outmatch Dimi with these totem coups. PrettyPriMe, though, underneath a little bit of trouble. Froisan and Prime both exchanging purification beads, but Exordium able to back up their jungler first means that Breez not going to try to give any further chase.
Prime holds onto the beads, drops Aegis in that last exchange, so we'll see if he can make this one work for him. He was definitely running, though, for Froisan in that last fight, managed to look for some turnaround. Itori uses the EI Jutsu aggressively, mounted archery for damage, and Spudio can't match the big ultimate burst because he's on the Ullr, so instead he just falls back. And not bad for the Itori who got farmed in game 1, as Froisan has to use the ultimate defensively.
Froisan, though, just going to throw the Cosmos straight into Exordium's red buff. Perhaps thought for a second that Breez was going to try and show his face, but Angry's going to get his red buff all the same. And Itori, I think the only real downside for him is that he wasn't able to force out Spudio's Aegis, but still a lot more difficult as the levels continue to climb.
Angry does get hit by that first chain, so he will get pulled in. Prime waiting, and a nice easy cleanup kill for him. Prime transforms into the Dodgy, so they have a second one to help them out here. FrostiaK's already used the Palau. I'm not sure if Prime ever did. He'll use it now to extend the duration of the Dodgy ultimate and make sure he's safely near the tower, and that forces out Alka's beats.
Getting Alka's beats for very little cost. Froisan, though, just going to get blown up by Spudio off that damage, and now Dimi with the cleanup factor in the back, Blink Fearless to finish the job.
And Prime still alive. He's able to slide out of there. Cozyx finally gets him, but Spudio rotates over to find one more. That makes it 3-for-1 in favor of Outcold. And that rotation from Dimi was Windex levels of clean. It can now pull this Gold Fury.
And it's not looking as pretty for Exordium here, Finch, as no one is going to bother showing their face. No one's even nearby to try and put a little bit of a delay there. So Outcold taking the first real lead of the game, but wise choices from Itori as he heads straight for the Pyromancer. Could be in some trouble, though. Dimi and Breez probably suspecting Exordium to be up to something.
They're sniffing it out, but they can't get there in time. Exordium completes the Pyromancer. Itori, with ice in his veins, sticks on it and completes the objective. So that exchange does heavily favor Outcold. Obviously, the 3-for-1 and the Gold Fury, but Itori at least finds something. Prime did take a spill there for them to try and hang their hats on. Matako Outcold finally, when they had all 5 members together, show what this comp's capable of.
And that's the danger of Outcold's composition, is that you have so many consistent beads burners. It's tough for these carries to try and keep those relics intact. Angry has been under heavy fire yet again. Got a couple of decent picks in the early game, but has kind of struggled ever since once Dimi started making his way over from solo.
Yes, and I think this is the timing that Outcold want to fight in. I mentioned that this felt a bit mid-gamey, this roster, the Dodgy and the Ullr, and this is the itemization point in which Morrigan feels really good. So it's no surprise that they're able to find a really good fight right around now. The question becomes from Exordium, can they hold on a little bit, give Itori time to finish off this build a little bit more? He's actually not going to Fail Not. He's going, it looks like, Executioner into Kin size, perhaps even an Aussie there, but they'll find their itemization spike here a little bit after Outcold.
When you factor in how tanky Kumbhakarna and Tyr can feel, the Chin size Executioner makes perfect sense, but more importantly, it's Angry getting aggressed on Dove pretty heavily into that T1 tower. Outcold Gaming not even worried about bringing down the structure. They're just focused on the fight.
Alka's been pulled back in, and now it's time for a second Dodgy. This one courtesy of PrettyPriMe. He's able to find the completion kill, but Mounted Archery finds one. Cozyx finds the other. Cozyx wants more, but Spudio answers back. That makes it 3-for-2, and Demi still plenty healthy. Pushes Itori away from the backline. Outcold win the fight and get the Tier 1 tower, so that's pretty good in their favor.
But this is all prior to FrostiaK even being fully 6 slotted here, Finch. As these itemization choices continue to add on for this Dodgy, I just don't really see how feasible it is for Angry to try and survive. Exordium maybe might have needed another shell on their solo laner as opposed to the blink, because I like the idea from Cozyx. Look for that blink initiation on the King Arthur, but it's going to be tough to expect any sort of follow-up when FrostiaK and PrettyPriMe are so easily able to dive angry.
Outcold hold on to a 3K gold lead, but at the time of the game when you might expect them to be a little bit out in front, it's not to the point where it's unmanageable. But I agree with your analysis about Angry, man. He could be in some trouble this game. If Prime and FrostiaK are willing to double dodge him every fight, he only has one set of beads and no CC immunity. I don't know how he makes it back out of them. All he can really do is try and get his damage off before his inevitable demise. The difference is it's not like a Zeus where you just drop the lightning storm, right, and you've done everything you need to do, or an Apwash where you empty the crypts and you can say it's okay that I died, I got my damage off. You really want your Merlin to survive those fights. Oof. He has so much sustained damage.
Froisan gonna lose that blink a little bit preemptively, an unfortunate forced usage as well. I might have to add, as Outcold looking to maybe strong arm this left side of the map down.
Yeah.
Itori gonna just back to base, recognizing that there's just too many members from Outcold present and no real reason for him to do anything else except try and finish off that chin size, which should make a pretty significant impact here against the likes of Dimi and Breez.
Yeah, they're gonna have a hard time bullying Itori now on this Hachiman. If he can stand tall, the tier 2 tower in the left is quite low, but Outcold won't commit. At least not yet, but they are lurking around this corner to see if anyone from Exordium poke their heads around. There's so many of their own icons, I can't quite tell if there's a ward. There is one right there in the middle, so certainly Exordium do know that Outcold are waiting.
And Itori already looking to cut Dimi off, not trying to let this tier stay out of combat long enough to get the blink off. Froisan, though, going real deep with this through the Cosmos. Gonna look to try and land on top of one of the carries, but PrettyPriMe in that invis just a little bit too long. Does get spotted out at the end, though.
I actually love that usage there from Froisan to try and make sure Angry can survive. Even still, it's not enough. Dimi hunts him down, way back by the Phoenix Prime is low, and Itori punishes him for it. I believe that was the mounted archery that cleans that one up. Dimi has now found the Hachiman, but EI Jutsu allows him to reposition, and Itori finds himself a double kill. Cozyx can keep this train rolling as well as he finds Spudio way in the back. If he can connect with Alka here for another piece of CC, they might actually be able to lock him down, but that's a nice axe to get him out of there.
Spudio should have that leap available any second also. Alka not gonna have a chance to try and bring that Terra wall clap stun upon him, but Breez on the end also manages to escape. This Oni Fury, though, could go the way of Exordium, and this is a huge Oni for Exordium to pick up. A pretty steep punish against Outcold, but Outcold were just so split, Finch. They get the T2 tower. It's just now Exordium here to even the scoreboard.
Outcold are still out in front. Remember, they got the tier 1 tower that ends up being a 2-for-1 in Exordium's favor in terms of kills, but in Outcold's favor because they get the structure and open up that left side of the map a bit more. But Exordium answer back with the Oni to try and make things about as close to even as you could ask for. And this is so different from the team we saw in games 1 and 2. In game 1, Exordium got walked over. It was brutal to watch. In game 2, they get walked over again, but they do manage to stall out for 20 minutes or so and win that game. And here in game 3, they've been basically even with Outcold the whole time.
The more you play, the better some teams tend to get, and for Exordium, it seems as though they're getting a little bit more fluid with their team fights as well in comparison to Outcold that has been kind of haphazard with a lot of their initiations. It's mostly just been Outcold kind of depending on Dimi to try and split apart Exordium, but the only real member of Exordium who's getting picked off is Angry.
And they have done a good job taking Angry out of this equation, but as a result, that meant that Itori's had a relatively clear and free time of it this game. He's 3-0-1 with the Odibo finished. Froisan just barely makes it up onto the Through the Cosmos ultimate. He can thank all that extra HP and protections he's been building to keep him alive there, but it's Exordium who find the Pyromancer. Alka does have to use, it looks like, the Purification Beads to survive, but the aggression still coming from Outcold. They want Angry way in the back. Aegis buys him a moment, but doesn't keep him alive long enough. Up under the mounted archery goes Itori, but now he's a sitting duck. Pushed back in by Dimi, but the wall stun is there and waiting. They need Spudio's follow-up damage, but he's not here.
Froisan, or excuse me, that's going to be Cozyx and Froisan looking to rejoin the fight. Spudio going to kill Itori in the process, but Cozyx still might be able to chase down Spudio, and in fact, will kill this Ullr 100 for 100 exchange so far, as FrostiaK now looking to fall next.
A double kill now for Cozyx, and Prime is low. They know exactly what direction he's moving in, and Froisan finds one more. 4 for 2 in favor now of Exordium. The only problem is they don't have their carries up, Taco. I don't see how they can try and pull something like an FG. Maybe Froisan by himself can threaten the tier 1 mid?
Well, Exordium did already take down that Pyromancer, so it's not as if they're walking away completely empty-handed. On top of the 4 kills that they were able to pick up, Outcold. I understand the target focus here onto Angry. Don't get me wrong, Finch, but at a certain point, you've got to stop pumping every single possible cooldown into this Merlin and try to just take the target prioritization as it comes to you. Alka and Itori did a fantastic job on that backside at just juggling around between spamming that Odysseus bow damage in between the tanks.
It's so interesting because this is the target prioritization we want to see at the end of game 2, when your 13,000 gold lead makes up for the fact that you've used all your cooldowns on one person, right? Then that math kind of adds up. In this game, though, it doesn't. It's tied, and if you commit everything on one guy, then the rest of Exordium, who are perfectly even with you, can just win the fight.
And that's exactly what's been happening every single time without fail. And I'm sure that Exordium aren't too unhappy with the way that things have been going for them. And how could they be when Outcold just continues to play into their hand?
They've got an even shot here at this game now. No team with any substantial advantage, though I do want to give Outcold the slight edge in terms of just map control. There's less towers for Exordium to fall back to on the left side of the map. Over here in right, though, it's not going to be nearly as impactful. Those tier 2s are there, and they can still retreat to those if it comes to it in a fight. So I consider this one a dead heat.
Fire Giant, though, starting to look pretty appealing for Outcold Gaming. They at least want the ideal positioning for it, but Exordium maybe looking to even challenge Outcold as to whether or not they really want to try and commit to this objective. And in fact, PrettyPriMe and FrostiaK are going to choose to just fall back and look to clear out this mid lane instead. Both T1 towers already haven't been taken down in that mid lane, so it's not like it's a safety net either for both of these teams should they be looking for a retreat.
Fire Giant here at the 26-minute 50-second mark still is not enhanced, so they won't be able to get past the backdoor protections, but it also won't be that difficult to take down. But it's Breez who wants to get things started. Blink into the epic uppercut, and it's Itori, a great target selection who's already low. Prime comes in to finish, but Aegis keeps him alive. Prime is forced to go up into the Dashi ultimate, and Itori does drop. That's huge, but no one's helping Spudio. Way in the backside, Cozyx has just looked for this Ullr, but finally FrostiaK pulls him in, so that means Spudio survives. They do end up losing PrettyPriMe for it in the end, but they have removed the Hachiman.
Spudio managed to back just in the nick of time, though, so he won't be caught out, unlike PrettyPriMe and FrostiaK. So 2-for-1 exchange. Only Itori falls, but Exordium much rather just look for this T2 tower since it's already missing about 20% of its HP.
Tier 2 tower in trouble here now. Outcold down 3-4 in terms of members who are alive. They can certainly defend on this Phoenix, and that's why with Exordium we see pulling up a little bit. There's still plenty of towers to go grab in left. They can even fall back and grab this Gold Fury relatively easily. Suddenly, Exordium have gone from holding their own up against Outcold to now having map pressure and can start to try and develop themselves an actual lead.
Gold Fury, though, not guaranteed just yet for Exordium. Cozyx actually under heavy fire now from Spudio. Decent poke damage as well, but Dimi's going to get caught out by the Acorn Blast from Froisan, and now Alka looking to zone away both Spudio and Breez.
Breez does find the two-man Mez, and that forces the Magi's cloak from Angry. A nice adaptation from him as well, recognizing he was being made the target and need a little bit of added safety. But Gold Fury doesn't go down, Taco. It's Outcold now, who could turn around and grab this to try and even things back up in terms of gold. A little bit of damage coming out from Angry, but that won't deter Chaos.
Mostly there to just kind of help out Outcold with confirming, but it's not an Oni Fury, it's not a Primal Fury, it is just a Gold Fury. And Finch, if we were any earlier on in the match, I think I'd be a little bit more concerned, but all things considered, after taking the T2 tower there in mid, Exordium had enough of a lead that even after getting the Gold Fury, Outcold still trailing ever so slightly, and most of these carries are on their 5th, 6th item slots anyway, so it's not like a Gold Fury alone is really going to be worth being caught out for.
Pyromancer now goes down in favor of Exordium. And they hold positioning around this next Fire Giant, which in the next 30 seconds will be enhanced. That could be a big deal if it swaps over in the middle of a pull and becomes suddenly harder to try and deal with, but the reward will nearly double as well. Exordium give up their positioning around the actual Fire Giant pit. It's Outcold who now control it. And look at the vision on this side of the map. Outcold control the information as well.
I'm a big fan, though, of these Mad Guys bubbles surrounding Froisan and Angry. For Angry, I think that it was a necessity.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be upset if he wound up picking up a Mantle of Discord later on, just because of how much focus Outcold has been pumping into this Merlin. But this is a pretty good grouping, and Cozyx is going to strike first onto PrettyPriMe.
Goes right towards him and forces out the Purification Beads early, so Breez tries to beat to the back line, but it costs him his HP. He's well below half. Dimi has turned, or rather is the tier, and had to use the Lawbringer to get to the back line, but up into the air goes Prime, as does FrostiaK, both with those dodgy Palows, and it is going to be FrostiaK who's able to pull in Itori, but still alive. So Prime comes in on the Morrigan and finds Itori here first. Cozyx is now low as well. FrostiaK's going to be okay on the right-hand side. It's Cozyx who doesn't get back up in time. Spudio cleaned him up, and Outcold win that fight 2-0.
I think Cozyx had the right idea looking for the initiation onto PrettyPriMe, but once PrettyPriMe started escaping through that back alley behind the Fire Giant, that's when Cozyx needed to pull back and provide the reinforcements for Exordium's carries instead. But Breez took full advantage of that King Arthur being a little bit too pushed up, and Froisan, having suspected Outcold to have already been on that enhanced Fire Giant, is going to wind up wasting the blink.
I think they do have a ward there where Pyromancer is, but it's not far enough forward to give them full vision of the actual pit, Taco. So, as you said, Froisan had no idea where that Fire Giant was. He just all-in committed in case it was low, and ends up costing him the blink. Fire Giant is now at half HP, but Alka front and center try and slow them down. Dimi responds with an ultimate, but say hello to some Merlin damage from Angry. That brings him down to half HP. Fire Giant at 3,000 HP, and it should go down now for Outcold.
And all 5 members are going to receive the benefits of that enhanced Fire Giant, Finch. And even though Outcold had full control of the Fire Giants in Game 2, keep in mind, Exordium did a fantastic job with this Merlin base defense, so getting that enhanced Fire Giant honestly just feels like the start of the uphill battle.
But Tyr and Kumbhakarna are a lot different of a frontline for you than the Erlang, Shen, Horus that they had in Game 2. Is that enough to kind of push past all this damage on the Merlin and all his wave clear?
It's a little bit more convincing, because there is the possibility of a double Powwow. There is the possibility of the double Trickster Spirit. So the damage isn't really the concern here. We've seen Outcold, if they want Angry dead, Angry is dying. The problem is, after the fact, when you kill the Merlin, how many cooldowns does it cost? And if Exordium are able to immediately punish Outcold for possibly overstepping the boundaries looking to kill the Merlin, or just using every single cooldown to kill the Merlin, and it's really just going to come down to whether or not Itori and Froisan can give enough DPS on the backside.
But that's what the concern I had early in the game. Froisan's not here for DPS. He's 3rd from the bottom in terms of player damage. He's built heavily into Bruiser, almost to the point of just being full tank. I mean, is he doing enough as a Ratatoskr in terms of peel for the team? It's really just the ultimate and the stun that he provides in that capacity.
I do want to see a little bit more from Froisan here, but I will throw him a bone in the sense that it's tough to find the timing for a good through the Cosmos into the composition that Outcold Gaming have, because it is so all or nothing from Outcold.
And he has had some really sick ultimates for what it's worth. He had one that was able to keep Angry alive, timed perfectly for when PrettyPriMe was coming in for the stun out of that stealth. So there's certainly been some really nice plays from him. I just don't know if this is the style of play you're going with. I still just don't find myself particularly convinced by the Ratatoskr pick itself.
I would be a pretty big fan of Froisan having just looked for an all-power build and just looking to kill Spudio off cooldown. Anytime Spudio's not in that axe stance, he's pretty much free game in these later stages, or at least that tends to be the case with a lot of competitive play, and I think that's part of the reason why we see Spudio just running around in the axe stance. He knows bow stance, you just don't have enough time to actually switch over. A good through the Cosmos would also prevent him with the knockup. But we'll just have to wait and see.
depending on how much he values the fail not passive, he also might not want to switch too often and waste that, depending on how much he values it. So it's not hugely valuable, I would say, but it might be one more concern.
It's decent, though, and it's a freebie for that 45 power and the 30% cooldown reduction as well is what I'm really keeping in mind here. That does make Spudio a little bit more difficult to actually track down because of all those cooldowns.
3 in right, and they'll have 1 in mid, and it's time for the right side Phoenix to come under siege. Itori has been forced to use the purification beads already, and with that, Outcold retreat. They didn't find much else, but they also didn't use a ton aside from the epic uppercut from Breez.
Not really much sacrificed, but still not a whole lot gained here. And Breez,
that
being
adds
about
up.
half health, it does make it a little bit more steep. Phoenix also half health, though, which is definitely a much better look than how every single Phoenix Siege went for Outcold last game.
Well, Dimi blinks right towards Angry to keep him out of this equation. There's the ultimate coming out from Alka, and a nice knock-up as well from Froisan, but it's Dimi who finds Cozyx early on. Angry pinned down underneath the Phoenix, and that's Dimi that did the work. PrettyPriMe is able to find a pull, but it's only on to Alka, and with all these low HP bars, even without Cozyx, Exordium are the ones surging forward.
The Phoenix still stands. That's the most important part here. And Dimi, on the other hand, going to get brought down from Itori, synchronizing nicely with that Merlin damage in the arcane stance. And Outcold have got to be a little bit frustrated by now, Finch. I mean, 2 games in a row of just having to deal with this Merlin on base defense.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have the chance to ban it, so I'm not going to have too much sympathy there for them. But yes, it has made things quite difficult for them to find their way into this base. And that time, Dimi did everything you could want to make sure that Angry was not comfortable in that fight. He blinks on him at the start and pushes him out. He has him pinned underneath the Phoenix on the right-hand side, but they're having to contend with this Terra ultimate, which is doing a lot of work. I think Froisan actually had a really good ultimate that time, and I know we asked for it from him, so I'm glad we saw it there. And of course, Merlin damage is just gross.
Merlin damage is indeed pretty gross, and Merlin damage also gonna help out Exordium with taking yet another Oni Fury. Outcold sleeping a little bit on these objectives, Finch, because that's 2 Oni Furies now, I believe, that have gone the way of Exordium, and without a doubt, the Oni Fury is probably the most important one for Outcold because sieging is what they've been struggling the most with.
That's right. It would help them a lot to have that juiced up sort of wave pushing down for them. Despite getting that global notification that Exordium is in left, Outcold didn't start on the right side. To be fair, without information, you don't know if it's just one member there and the rest of Exordium are lurking, but I thought perhaps it at least forced them in. Instead, they'll actually wait, pushed up, to perhaps catch Exordium off guard when they come in to check the FG.
So far, it's only Cozyx who's just trying to clear out his blue buff, but a 37-minute blue buff might not have been worth the risk here, Finch. Dimi, though, not going to be able to find the Blink Fearless, and Cozyx will stay safe and sound. Pretty big cooldown as well for Outcold to lose there. Dimi's going to have to wait just a little bit longer than what he probably wants to after that enhanced Fire Giant is sieged. Still has the Lawbringer, though. Good Lawbringer into the Fearless.
PrettyPriMe still doesn't have his relics available, so I imagine Outcold want to chill a little bit before they actually start up this next fight. 15 seconds on beads and 30 plus on that Aegis. Meanwhile, just about every relic available for Exordium, Angry 10 seconds away from having his own purification beads back. So Outcold probably didn't want to fight just yet. They'll wait a little bit.
But Exordium, no. The jungle fight is probably Outcold's best bet for looking for a clean wipe. And
are they just grouping and left here?
Exordium actually looking to maybe kill Dimi and pick off this tier and give themselves a 4v5 advantage.
He's used the Lawbringer, and now he's used the Power Cleave. A stun comes out from Froisan, mounted archery for the slow. But Dimi, healthy through it all, only half HP, makes his way out of there. That is the ultimate from Itori committed, as well as Dimi's defensively, but they don't find anything there.
On the other hand, though, Outcold, recognizing that Exordium have finally managed to leave the base, might be getting cut off now by FrostiaK, who's looking straight for Itori.
The axe ends up landing on Itori, and he falls early on, so FrostiaK responds by going up to the Palo, and those chains hit onto 2 to force the Magai's cloaks. Angry's gonna need some backup there as PrettyPriMe goes aggressive. He's transformed into the Daji, and the Changeling finds the kill. He even still has the Powwow left. Exordium has overcommitted on this left side push, and suddenly Outcold have found all the picks they need. It's Alka who's isolated way in the backside on the Terra. Mez controlled and deleted. Outcold find a 4 for 0 in their favor.
Sometimes, Finch, you just go for the big plays, and for Exordium, their ambitions were a little bit too high here on that one. If they'd actually killed Dimi before he had a chance to escape and buy enough time for Outcold to rotate in, then I think we see an entirely different outcome, or at least even further delay here. But Froisan, there's only so much this lone Ratatoskr can do.
He's not going to be bringing that much damage anyway. Wow, 39 minutes worth of work here from Exordium to remain even without Cold, and they end up losing it all in one fight. Outcold are the ones who win this set 2-1 over Exordium, but it was anything but easy for them. What a close set it was between these two.
And even still, I like seeing Exordium try to be proactive there on that left-hand side. They recognized that Dimi was out there by his lonesome, and again, if they'd actually found the pick onto the tier, this might have been an entirely different outcome. So the mindset was good. The execution needs a little bit of work.
You know, I thought they were grouping up to maybe make a tier 2 tower push, kind of expecting for the rest of Outcold to be near the FG and just kind of lurking around, not doing much backing, and then they end up running into Dimi and trying to audible the call into killing him. That just doesn't quite work. I mean, I had my questions still about this draft from Exordium, but the way they played it, I mean, I feel like that's answered. They were in a 50-50 in that end game to be able to take down Outcold here, and it just didn't land their way.
Probably one of the only adjustments I would want from this Exordium roster would maybe be give Froisan just an actual warrior or something extremely tanky, like a Guardian even, have some kind of Cheerio style going on in the jungle. If your Ratatoskr going to build that bruiser anyway, you're probably better off just having a straight-up tank.
I agree. I don't think picking Ratatoskr is bad. I don't think your jungler playing as a sort of pseudo-frontliner for you is bad. I just don't know if those two are necessarily compatible and didn't quite work there in that game. Whatever it is, Exordium have a little bit to work on. Outcold enjoy their victory. We still have plenty more SML, though, to come your way. Go ahead and refill that drink, get ready, get right back here for some more action.